The hum began as a whisper, barely detectable through the static of Earth's monitoring systems. Then it grew, a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to emanate from the very fabric of space. On the edge of the solar system, shadows shifted, coalescing into shapes that defied comprehension. Massive, angular ships emerged from the void, their surfaces shimmering with an otherworldly iridescence. The fleet was vast, stretching beyond the limits of human calculation. Aboard the command stations of Earth's defense networks, alarms blared, officers scrambled, their faces pale under the flickering lights. "What is that?" Someone whispered, their voice trembling. No one answered. The question hung in the air, heavy with dread. Then, a signal cut through the chaos, a single transmission, broadcast across every frequency. The words were guttural, distorted, as if spoken by something that had never known human language. Surrender or perish. The message repeated, colder and more final with each iteration. On Earth's surface, the skies darkened as the first wave of ships began their descent. Cities braced for impact, their defenses scrambling into position. Somewhere, a child asked their parent if this was the end. No one had the heart to answer. The first shot was fired, a desperate attempt to hold the line. It struck the lead ship, but the energy dissipated harmlessly against its hull. The alien fleet didn't even slow, and then the real battle began. The air in the emergency summit chamber was thick with tension, a palpable weight pressing down on every leader gathered. Earth's most powerful figures sat around a massive circular table, their faces illuminated by the flickering glow of holographic star maps and incoming data streams. The room buzzed with hushed conversations, fragmented by the occasional sharp outburst of disagreement. Outside, the skies were no longer theirs. Alien scout ships, sleek and silent, had breached Earth's atmosphere, their presence a grim reminder of humanity's vulnerability. The question on everyone's lips, fight or negotiate. General Marcus Hale, a towering figure with a reputation forged in countless battles, rose from his seat. His voice cut through the murmurs like a blade. "We don't even know what they want. How can we surrender to the unknown?" The words hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. Hale's stance was clear. To him, the idea of capitulation without understanding the enemy's motives was not just cowardice, it was suicide. The room erupted into debate. Some leaders argued for caution, pointing out that humanity had never faced a threat of this magnitude. What if they're not here to conquer? One voice interjected. What if they're explorers or even refugees? We could be throwing away a chance for peace by jumping to conclusions. Others countered with equal fervor, citing the alien ship's ominous movements and their refusal to communicate. "They've had weeks to reach out," another leader snapped. "Instead, they've chosen silence. That's not the behavior of a peaceful species." Hale's eyes swept the room, his gaze sharp and unflinching. "We've spent centuries preparing for this moment," he said, his voice steady but edged with urgency. "Our defenses, our strategies, they were built for a day like today. If we don't act now, we risk losing everything, not just our planet, but our very identity as a species. We fight because we must, because the alternative is to vanish without a trace." The debate raged on, each argument met with counter-arguments, each plea for peace met with warnings of war. Outside, the alien ships loomed larger, their movements deliberate and unnerving. Reports streamed in from military outposts and observation stations, detailing the vessel's uncanny ability to evade detection until it was too late. "They're testing us," one analyst whispered, "learning our weaknesses. As the hours passed, the tension in the room only grew. Leaders who had once stood united now found themselves divided, their unity fractured by fear and uncertainty. Hale's words echoed in their minds, a stark reminder of the stakes. To fight was to risk annihilation, but to surrender, that was to risk something far worse, the loss of autonomy, of freedom, of everything that made humanity what it was. The alien ships continued their silent advance, their intentions still shrouded in mystery, and as the summit stretched into the night, one question lingered, unspoken but ever present. What would it mean to face the unknown, not as conquerors or victims, but as equals? The answer, for now, remained elusive, buried beneath the weight of fear and the shadow of the unknown. The first alien scout ships were no longer a distant threat. They were here. And humanity's leaders, for all their power and wisdom, were left grappling with a decision that would shape the fate of their species: fight or negotiate. Stand or fall, the choice was theirs, and the weight of it pressed down on them like the gravity of a collapsing star. The silence of space was shattered as the small human fleet, a collection of the Earth's fastest ships, approached the alien scouts near Mars. These vessels were the pride of humanity's military, streamlined, heavily armed, and equipped with the latest technology. Aboard the flagship Erebus, Commander Elena Reyes stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the glowing alien crafts that shimmered like distant stars. The tension was palpable. Every crew member knew this was no routine mission. This was humanity's first real test against the unknown. The alien scouts were unlike anything they had ever seen. Their ships moved with an eerie grace, their surfaces reflecting light in ways that defied human engineering. Commander Reyes gave the order to fire, and a barrage of missiles and plasma rounds streaked toward the alien vessels. But as the weapons closed in, something extraordinary happened. The alien ships emitted a faint, pulsating glow, and the projectiles simply vanished. No explosions, no damage, just silence. Reyes clenched her fists. "What the hell is this?" she muttered, her voice tight with frustration. "Commander, their shields, our weapons aren't penetrating," shouted Lieutenant Carter, his voice trembling. Reyes stared at the data streaming across her console. The readings were impossible. The alien shields absorbed the energy from the attacks, rendering humanity's most advanced weaponry utterly useless. It was as if they were throwing pebbles at a fortress. The aliens didn't even retaliate at first, as if they were studying the humans, gauging their strength, or lack thereof. Then, without warning, one of the alien ships fired. A beam of light, brighter than a supernova, lanced through the void and struck the Erebus. The impact was instantaneous. The ship's hull buckled, alarms blared, and the bridge was plunged into chaos. Reyes clung to her console, her mind racing. "Damage report," she barked, but the response was drowned out by the deafening roar of failing systems. The ship was breaking apart, and there was nothing they could do. In those final moments, Reyes radioed back to Earth, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "They're not just stronger, they're smarter. We need a new strategy, or we're finished." Her words were cut short as an explosion ripped through the Erebus, engulfing it in a blinding flash of light. The bridge went dark, and the transmission ended abruptly. Back on Earth, the command center fell silent. The loss of the Erebus and its crew was a devastating blow, but even more alarming was the realization that humanity was outmatched. The aliens weren't just technologically superior, they were operating on a level of strategy and intelligence that humans couldn't yet comprehend. The battle near Mars wasn't just a defeat, it was a wake-up call. Humanity had always prided itself on its ingenuity and resilience, But now, for the first time, there was doubt. Could they adapt fast enough? Could they even survive? As the debris from the Erebus drifted in the cold void, the alien scouts continued their approach, their movements deliberate and unhurried. They weren't just invaders, they were a force of nature, unstoppable and indifferent. And somewhere, deep in the corridors of Earth's command centers, the question lingered: what could humanity possibly do against an enemy that seemed to have no weaknesses? The answer, it seemed, would determine the fate of the entire species. The discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community and beyond. Deep within the Earth's crust, seismic readings began to show anomalies unlike anything ever recorded. At first, the tremors were subtle small ripples in the data that could have been dismissed as natural fluctuations. But as the days passed, the disturbances grew more pronounced, revealing a pattern that defied explanation. It was Dr. Lai Y, a leading geophysicist and one of the few scientists still working tirelessly in the chaos of the alien invasion, who pieced together the horrifying truth. The extraterrestrial forces weren't just occupying the surface, they were drilling into the planet's core, extracting something vital, something essential to Earth's survival. Dr. Y's voice trembled as she addressed the hastily assembled council of world leaders and military officials. They're not here for conquest or resources in the traditional sense, she explained, her words cutting through the tense silence. They're harvesting the Earth's core for an energy source we can't even fully comprehend, and every second they continue, they're destabilizing the planet's magnetic field, its tectonic plates, its very foundation. If we don't stop them, Earth will be uninhabitable in weeks. Her warning was met with stunned silence, followed by a flurry of panicked questions. How had they missed this? What could be done, and most importantly, was there even time to act? The implications were staggering. The Earth's core, a molten sphere of iron and nickel, is the engine that drives the planet's magnetic field, protects it from solar radiation, and maintains the delicate balance of its ecosystems. Without it, the consequences would be catastrophic. The magnetic shield would collapse, exposing the surface to lethal doses of cosmic radiation. The tectonic plates, already under strain from the alien machinery, would begin to shift uncontrollably, triggering earthquakes and volcanic eruptions on an unprecedented scale. The atmosphere would thin and the oceans would boil away. In short, Earth would become a lifeless husk. The race against time had begun. Teams of scientists, engineers, and military strategists were mobilized, their mission clear: develop a countermeasure that could halt the aliens' extraction process before it was too late. But the challenges were immense. The alien technology was far beyond human understanding, and their drilling operations were deep underground, shielded by impenetrable defenses. Traditional weapons were useless against such a threat. What was needed was something revolutionary, something that could disrupt the aliens' operations without further destabilizing the planet. Dr. Y proposed a daring plan, using data gathered from seismic sensors and satellite imagery. Her team identified the primary extraction points, massive structures the aliens had erected deep within the Earth's mantle. These structures, she theorized, were the key to their operation. If they could be disabled, the extraction process might be halted. But how? The answer lay in a risky, untested technology: a series of high-frequency resonance devices designed to destabilize the alien machinery without causing additional harm to the Earth's core. It was a gamble, but with no other options on the table, it was a gamble humanity had to take. As the hours ticked by, the situation grew more dire. Reports of earthquakes and volcanic activity began to pour in from around the globe. Entire cities were evacuated, as the ground beneath them cracked and shifted, the skies darkened with ash, and the air grew thick with the scent of sulfur. Amid the chaos, Dr. Y and her team worked around the clock, their progress hampered by power outages, communication breakdowns, and the ever-present threat of alien attacks. But they pressed on, driven by the knowledge that failure was not an option. The stakes had never been higher. Humanity's survival hinged on the success of their mission, and every second counted. As the resonance devices were deployed, the world held its breath, waiting to see if the desperate gamble would pay off, or if it would be the final, fatal mistake in a war that had already cost so much. The aliens had come for Earth's core, but humanity wasn't ready to give it up without a fight. The question was, would their defiance be enough to save the planet, or would it only hasten its destruction? The tension in the room was palpable as the holographic projection flickered to life, revealing the schematics of a prototype weapon unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Hidden deep within a secret underground facility, the device was designed to disrupt the advanced technology of the alien invaders. Its potential was immense, but there was one glaring problem. It required a rare element known as iribium, a mineral found only on the distant moon of Erebus. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't just a mission, it was a desperate gamble, a last-ditch effort to turn the tide of a war humanity was losing by the hour. Captain Jaxon stepped forward, his voice steady but carrying the weight of the moment. "I'll lead the mission," he said, his eyes scanning the faces of his team. "If we fail, there's no one left to try." His words hung in the air, a stark reminder of the stakes. The alien forces were relentless, their technology far beyond anything Earth had encountered. The prototype weapon was humanity's only hope, but retrieving the iribium would mean venturing into uncharted territory, facing unimaginable dangers, and confronting the unknown. The team began their preparations, each member acutely aware of the risks. The journey to Erebus would take them through hostile space, where alien patrols lurked in the shadows. Their ship, the Aegis, was equipped with state-of-the-art stealth technology, but even that might not be enough to evade detection. The crew worked tirelessly, checking and rechecking every system, every piece of equipment. There was no room for error. Failure wasn't just an option. It was a death sentence for the entire human race. As the hours ticked by, the gravity of their mission settled over them like a heavy shroud. The prototype weapon was a marvel of human ingenuity, a fusion of cutting-edge science and sheer desperation. Its core mechanism relied on iribium's unique properties, which could disrupt the alien tech's energy fields, rendering their ships and weapons useless. But without the mineral, the weapon was nothing more than a fragile shell, a symbol of hope with no power to back it up. The moon of Erebus was a desolate, inhospitable place, its surface scarred by ancient impacts and shrouded in perpetual twilight. According to the scant data available, the iribium deposits were located deep within a network of caverns, accessible only through a series of treacherous tunnels. The team would need to navigate these labyrinthine passages, avoiding natural hazards and potential alien traps, all while racing against time. The aliens were already advancing on Earth's last strongholds. Every second counted. As the Aegis prepared for launch, Captain Jaxon gathered his team for a final briefing. "This isn't just about survival," he said, his voice firm but laced with determination. "This is about proving that humanity isn't finished, that we still have the will to fight, to endure, to overcome. We're not just retrieving a mineral, we're reclaiming our future." His words resonated with the crew, a spark of defiance in the face of overwhelming odds. The ship's engines roared to life, and the Aegis ascended into the void, leaving Earth's atmosphere behind. The journey ahead was fraught with peril, but there was no turning back. Captain Jaxon stood at the helm, his gaze fixed on the stars. Somewhere out there, in the cold, unforgiving expanse of space, lay their only hope. And as the Aegis hurtled toward Erebus, the crew steeled themselves for the challenges ahead, knowing that the fate of humanity rested in their hands. The tension on the bridge of the starship Eclipse was palpable as Jaxon gripped the edge of the command console, his eyes locked on the swirling vortex of hyperspace ahead. The mission to the moon, a desperate gamble to retrieve the ancient artifact that could turn the tide of the war, had begun in earnest, but as the Eclipse emerged from the jump, a chilling realization swept through the crew. The alien fleet, their sensors sharper than anticipated, had already locked onto their position. "Captain," Lieutenant Mara called out, her voice tight with urgency, "we've got multiple signatures closing in fast." "They're on an intercept course." Jaxon didn't hesitate. Full speed ahead, he barked, his voice cutting through the rising panic. "We can't let them catch us now." "Not when we're this close." The Eclipse surged forward, its engines roaring as the crew scrambled to outmaneuver their pursuers. Outside, the void of space was alive with streaks of light as the alien ships unleashed a barrage of energy pulses. Each near miss sent tremors through the hull, rattling the crew's nerves but not their resolve. "Shields at 60% and holding," Ensign Kale reported, his fingers dancing across the tactical display. "But they're gaining on us, sir. We need a plan, and fast." Jackson's mind raced. The alien fleet was relentless, their technology far beyond anything humanity had encountered before. But he knew the stakes. The artifact on the moon wasn't just a weapon. It was the key to understanding the enemy, to unlocking their weaknesses. If they failed now, the war would be lost before it had truly begun. "Helm," Jaxon ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Plot a course for the asteroid field, the one we scanned on the way in. It's our only chance." The Eclipse banked sharply, its thrusters flaring as it veered toward the dense cluster of asteroids. Behind them, the alien ships adjusted their trajectory, but the asteroids posed a challenge even for their advanced navigation systems. The crew held their breath as the Eclipse plunged into the field, weaving between jagged rocks that loomed like silent sentinels. "Shields taking hits," Kale called out, his voice rising. 40% and dropping. "Keep us steady," Jaxon commanded, his eyes scanning the tactical display. "We're almost through." The ship shuddered violently as a massive asteroid grazed the hull, sparks flying from the damaged sections. But the gamble paid off. The alien fleet, unable to navigate the treacherous field at such high speeds, began to fall behind. One by one, their signals faded from the sensors, their pursuit thwarted by the labyrinth of rock and debris. For a moment, there was silence on the bridge, broken only by the steady hum of the engines. Then, a cheer erupted from the crew as the Eclipse emerged from the far side of the asteroid field, the alien fleet nowhere in sight. "We made it," Mara whispered, her relief evident, but Jaxon's expression remained grim. "We're not out of the woods yet," he said, his gaze fixed on the moon now visible on the viewscreen. The hard part's just begun. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of their mission settling over them once more. The artifact was within reach, but the cost of retrieving it was becoming painfully clear. The aliens weren't just a threat, they were a force of nature, relentless and unforgiving. And as the Eclipse approached the moon's orbit, Jaxon couldn't shake the feeling that their narrow escape was only the beginning of a much larger, more dangerous game. "Prepare the landing team," he ordered, his voice firm. "We've got one shot at this, let's make it count." The crew sprang into action, their earlier fear replaced by a steely determination. The mission to the moon had begun, but the real battle, the battle for humanity's survival, was just getting started. The mission to the moon had always been a gamble, but the stakes had never been higher. As the team landed on the barren, crater-pocked surface, the weight of their task pressed heavily on their shoulders. The element they sought, the key to humanity's survival, was hidden deep within a labyrinthine cave system, its location pinpointed by years of research and sacrifice. The airless silence of the moon felt oppressive, a stark contrast to the urgency driving them forward. Every step was measured, every decision critical. Time was not on their side. The cave system was a maze of jagged rock and shadow, illuminated only by the faint glow of their helmet lights. The team moved with precision, their training and trust in one another guiding them through the treacherous terrain. It was Jaxon who first spotted the element, a shimmering, otherworldly substance embedded in the rock, pulsating with an almost living energy. For a moment, hope surged through the group. They had found it, humanity had a chance, but that hope was short-lived. Before they could extract the element, the cave was suddenly alive with movement. Alien drones, sleek and silent, descended from the shadows, their metallic forms glinting ominously in the dim light. The team was surrounded, outnumbered, and outgunned. Panic threatened to take hold, but Jaxon's voice cut through the chaos, calm and commanding. "Stick to the plan," he ordered. "Get the element out of here." "I'll hold them off." The words were a gut punch. Everyone knew what they meant. Jaxon wasn't coming back. The drones attacked with ruthless efficiency, their weapons slicing through the air with deadly precision. The team fought back with everything they had, but the odds were impossible. Jaxon, however, was relentless. He moved like a man possessed, drawing the drones' fire away from the others. "Go," he shouted, his voice cracking with desperation. Now, the team hesitated, torn between survival and the unthinkable cost of leaving him behind. But Jaxon's resolve was unshakable. "Tell my family I died fighting for them," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. It was a plea, a final request, and a declaration of purpose all at once. And then he was gone, charging headlong into the swarm of drones, buying the team the precious seconds they needed to escape. As the team fled with the element clutched tightly in their hands, the sound of Jaxon's sacrifice echoed in their minds. His words were a haunting reminder of what was at stake, not just for humanity, but for the people they loved. The moon's surface blurred beneath their feet as they ran, the weight of their mission now heavier than ever. They had the element, but the cost had been unimaginable. Jaxon's sacrifice was a stark testament to the brutality of war, to the lengths people would go to protect what mattered most. The escape pod was waiting, its doors sliding shut just as the drones closed in. As the pod launched into the void, the team could only watch in silence as the moon grew smaller behind them. Jaxon's absence was a void, a wound that would never fully heal, but his sacrifice had given them something far more valuable than just the element. It had given them a renewed sense of purpose, a burning determination to see this through to the end. The final war was far from over, but Jaxon's legacy would be the spark that kept them fighting. The journey back to Earth was a somber one, the weight of what they had lost tempered only by the knowledge of what they had gained. The element was secure, but the cost had been steep. As the pod hurtled through the darkness, the team knew one thing for certain: Jaxon's sacrifice would not be in vain. They would honor his memory by ensuring that humanity's last stand against the unknown would be a fight worth remembering. The atmosphere on Earth was thick with tension as the final components of the weapon, humanity's last hope, were painstakingly assembled. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock, their hands steady despite the weight of the task. Every bolt tightened, every circuit tested, carried the weight of billions of lives. The weapon, a marvel of human ingenuity, was designed to target the aliens' core weaknesses, but its success hinged on one critical factor: time that was running out faster than anyone had anticipated. Just as the final piece clicked into place, the skies above erupted in a blinding flash of light. The aliens had arrived, not in small scouting parties this time, but in an overwhelming, full-scale invasion. Their ships descended like a swarm of locusts, blotting out the sun and casting long, ominous shadows over the cities below. The ground trembled as their war machines touched down, their metallic forms glinting with an otherworldly menace. This was no longer a skirmish or a test of strength. This was an all-out assault, a declaration of their intent to wipe humanity from existence. General Hale, the seasoned commander who had led humanity's forces through countless battles, stood at the heart of the storm. His voice, steady and resolute, crackled over the global comms network. "This is it," he said, his words cutting through the chaos. "Our last stand. Fight like your lives depend on it, because they do." His message was simple, but it carried the weight of desperation and determination. Across the globe, soldiers, civilians, and volunteers alike rallied to the call, their faces set with grim resolve. This was the moment they had been preparing for, the moment that would define the fate of their species. The human forces, though outnumbered and outgunned, were not without their strengths. They had the weapon, yes, but they also had something the aliens could never replicate: the unyielding spirit of survival. From the trenches of Europe to the deserts of Africa, from the frozen tundras of the north to the dense jungles of the south, humanity's defenders stood ready. Tanks rumbled into position, fighter jets screamed across the sky, and ground troops armed themselves with whatever they could find: rifles, explosives, even makeshift weapons forged from scraps. Every man, woman, and child who could hold a weapon joined the fight, their collective will a force to be reckoned with. In the command center, General Hale monitored the unfolding battle with a steely gaze. Screens displayed real-time data from every front, each one a grim reminder of the stakes. He knew the weapon had to be deployed at the perfect moment, a single misstep spelling disaster. But he also knew that every second his forces held the line bought them precious time. The aliens, for all their advanced technology, had underestimated humanity's resilience. They had not accounted for the sheer determination of a species fighting for its survival. As the battle raged on, the skyline became a chaotic tapestry of fire and smoke. Explosions lit up the horizon, their deafening roars mingling with the cries of the wounded and the defiant shouts of those still standing. Fighter pilots executed daring maneuvers, weaving through enemy fire to deliver crippling blows. Ground troops fought with a ferocity born of desperation, their movements sharp and precise despite the overwhelming odds, and through it all, the weapon loomed in the background, a silent promise of hope or destruction. The aliens pressed their advantage, their forces advancing with brutal efficiency, but humanity held firm, their lines bending but not breaking. Every inch of ground was contested, every victory hard-won. The cost was immense, but the alternative was unthinkable. For every soldier who fell, another rose to take their place, their resolve unshaken. The battle was not just for survival, It was for the very soul of humanity, a testament to their will to endure against all odds. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an eerie glow over the battlefield, General Hale issued his final orders. The weapon was ready, its targeting systems locked onto the aliens' command ship. But deploying it meant risking everything. The weapon's energy core was unstable, and a misfire could doom them all. Hale's voice was calm as he addressed his troops one last time. "Hold the line," he said. "No matter what happens, hold the line. This is our moment, this is our fight." And so, as the aliens unleashed their final assault, humanity stood united, their backs against the wall and their eyes fixed on the horizon. The weapon hummed to life, its energy building to a crescendo. The final battle had begun, and the fate of the world hung in the balance. The moment had finally arrived. The weapon, a culmination of humanity's ingenuity and desperation, hummed with power as it reached its peak charge. Its activation was anything but subtle. A blinding flash of energy erupted from its core, rippling outward in a wave of pure, uncontainable force. The pulse tore through the void of space, invisible yet undeniable, and slammed into the alien fleet with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. In an instant, the once impenetrable shields that had protected the invaders flickered and failed, leaving their ships exposed and vulnerable. Reyes, standing on the bridge of the command ship, clenched his fists as the weapon's success registered on the monitors. His voice cut through the tension like a knife. "Now's our chance, hit them with everything we've got." The urgency in his tone was electric, a rallying cry that echoed across every human vessel. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, hope surged through the ranks. This wasn't just a fight for survival anymore, it was a fight for victory. Human ships, previously outmatched and outgunned, surged forward with renewed ferocity. The energy pulse had leveled the playing field, and now it was time to capitalize on the opening. Laser cannons fired in rapid succession, their beams slicing through the darkness to strike the alien hulls. Missiles streaked across the void, their payloads detonating in brilliant explosions that illuminated the battlefield. The coordinated assault was relentless, a symphony of destruction that showcased humanity's resilience and determination. But the aliens weren't about to surrender so easily. Even without their shields, their ships were formidable, their technology far beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. They retaliated with precision strikes, their weapons carving through the ranks of human fighters. The battle raged on, each side trading blows in a desperate bid for supremacy. Yet for every human ship lost, two more seemed to rise in its place, a testament to the indomitable spirit of a species pushed to its limits. The weapon's success had turned the tide, but it wasn't a guarantee of victory. It was a fleeting opportunity, a window of hope that had to be seized before it closed. Reyes knew this better than anyone. His eyes darted across the tactical display, analyzing the shifting dynamics of the battle. Every second counted, every decision mattered. The weight of command pressed down on him, but he refused to falter. This was the moment humanity had been fighting for, and he wasn't about to let it slip away. As the human fleet pressed the attack, the alien forces began to falter. Their formations broke, their once coordinated movements devolving into chaos. The energy pulse had not only disabled their shields, it had disrupted their communication, leaving them disoriented and vulnerable. It was a stroke of luck, perhaps, but one that Reyes and his crew were determined to exploit to its fullest. The counterattack was brutal and unyielding, a testament to humanity's unshakable will. The alien fleet, so confident in their superiority just moments ago, now found themselves on the defensive. But even as the human ships advanced, a sense of unease lingered. The aliens were cunning, their tactics unpredictable. This battle was far from over, and the cost of victory would be steep. Yet, for the first time, humanity dared to believe that victory was possible. The weapon had given them a fighting chance, and they were prepared to seize it with everything they had. The sky above Earth erupted in a symphony of chaos as the alien mothership emerged from the depths of space, its colossal form casting a shadow over the battlefield. It was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, a behemoth of dark, jagged metal, pulsating with an eerie, otherworldly glow. Its sheer size defied comprehension, dwarfing even the largest human carriers and making the once imposing alien cruisers look like mere insects in comparison. The air seemed to grow heavier, charged with a tension that pressed down on every soul watching from the surface or aboard the human fleet. This wasn't just another ship, it was the heart of the invasion, the nerve center of the enemy's operation. Dr. Y, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment, broke the stunned silence. "That's their command center," she said, her eyes locked on the massive structure. "If we destroy it, we might end this war." Her words carried a mix of hope and desperation, a stark reminder of what was at stake. The mothership wasn't just a symbol of the alien threat, it was the key to their entire operation. Taking it down would cripple their forces, but the cost would be unimaginable. The human fleet, battered and bruised from weeks of relentless fighting, began to rally. Ships that had been scattered across the battlefield now converged, their engines roaring as they prepared for what could only be described as a suicidal assault. Pilots exchanged final words over the comms, their voices tinged with both fear and resolve. Families, friends, and entire nations watched from below, their fates hinging on the bravery of those who would charge headfirst into the jaws of death. Commander Reyes, his face etched with determination, addressed the fleet. "This is it," he said, his voice cutting through the static. "We've fought too hard, lost too much to back down now. That thing out there, it's not just a ship, it's the embodiment of everything we're fighting against. If we don't stop it here, there won't be a tomorrow for any of us." His words resonated across every vessel, igniting a fire in the hearts of the weary soldiers. The plan was as simple as it was brutal. The fleet would launch a coordinated attack, focusing all their firepower on the mothership's central core. There were no illusions about survival. This was a one-way mission. Every ship, every pilot, every weapon would be thrown into the fray, not with the hope of returning, but with the singular goal of ending the war. As the human fleet moved into position, the alien forces responded in kind. Swarms of enemy fighters descended like a storm, their sleek, angular ships weaving through the chaos with terrifying precision. The battlefield became a maelstrom of light and sound, with plasma bolts and missiles crisscrossing the void. Human ships fell one after another, their hulls ripped apart by the relentless onslaught. Yet for every vessel lost, another pressed forward, driven by the unyielding determination to protect their home. Amid the carnage, Dr. Y's voice crackled over the comms once more. "Focus on the core," she urged. "Their shields are strongest at the perimeter, but the central reactor, it's their weak point. Hit it hard and hit it fast." Her words were a lifeline, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, there was still a chance. The human fleet surged forward, their engines screaming as they closed the distance. The mothership loomed larger with every passing second, its dark silhouette blotting out the stars. For a moment, it seemed as though the sheer scale of the alien vessel would crush their resolve. But then, as if driven by some unspoken collective will, the fleet opened fire. Lasers, missiles, and railgun rounds slammed into the mothership's hull, each impact sending shockwaves through the massive structure. The aliens retaliated with devastating force, their weapons tearing through human ships like paper, yet even as the losses mounted, the fleet pressed on. This was their moment, their last, desperate stand against the unknown, and as the battle raged, one truth became clear: this was not just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the very soul of humanity, a fight to prove that even in the face of annihilation, hope could still burn bright. The tension in the void of space was palpable as Captain Reyes gripped the controls of her battered ship, the Elysium. Around her, the remnants of Earth's fleet fought valiantly, but the alien mothership loomed like a monstrous leviathan, its dark hull pulsating with an eerie, otherworldly energy. Reyes' voice crackled over the comms, steady and resolute. "All units hold formation, we're going in." Her words carried the weight of a commander who had seen too many losses, too much destruction, to falter now. This was it, the final stand. The Elysium surged forward, its thrusters burning hot as it cut through the chaos of battle. Explosions flared around her, debris from fallen ships drifting like silent tombstones in the void. Alarms blared inside her cockpit, warning of critical damage to the hull, but Reyes ignored them. Her focus was singular: the mothership. Its massive form dominated the battlefield, a symbol of the alien threat that had pushed humanity to the brink of extinction. "Captain, we're taking heavy fire," her co-pilot shouted, his voice strained. The ship shuddered violently as another barrage of alien plasma struck its shields. Sparks flew from the control panel, and the air inside the cabin grew thin. Reyes clenched her jaw, her hands steady on the controls. "Hold it together," she muttered, more to herself than to anyone else. Just a little farther, her eyes flicked to the holographic display in front of her. The mothership was close, so close she could see the intricate patterns etched into its surface, patterns that seemed to writhe and shift as if alive. The sight sent a chill down her spine, but she didn't flinch. There was no room for fear now, not when the fate of Earth hung in the balance. "Reyes, this is command," a voice crackled over the comms. "Your ship's integrity is at 12%. You need to pull back." Reyes' lips curled into a grim smile. "Negative, command, I'm not turning back." Her voice was calm, almost serene, but beneath it burned a fire that had been stoked by years of war, loss, and sacrifice. For Earth, for humanity, this ends now. The Elysium rocketed forward, its engines screaming in protest. The mothership filled the viewport now, its surface a labyrinth of alien technology that defied human understanding. Reyes adjusted her trajectory, aiming for a critical weak point her team had identified earlier. It was a gamble, a desperate, all-or-nothing move, but it was the only shot they had. "Brace for impact," she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. The Elysium slammed into the mothership with a deafening crash, the force of the collision rattling the ship to its core. Metal screeched and groaned as the hull buckled, but Reyes held firm. Her hands tightened on the controls, her eyes locked on the display. The breach was critical, a gaping wound in the mothership's defenses that would allow the rest of the fleet to strike at its heart. As the Elysium came to a halt, embedded in the alien vessel, Reyes took a moment to breathe. The cockpit was dark now, the power failing, but she could see the faint glow of the mothership's interior through the cracks in the hull. Somewhere in the distance, she heard the faint hum of alien machinery, a sound that sent a shiver down her spine. She reached for the comms, her voice steady despite the chaos. "This is Captain Reyes. The breach is open. Move in and finish this." Her words were a rallying cry, a final command from a leader who had given everything for the cause. As the fleet surged forward, Reyes leaned back in her seat, her gaze fixed on the stars beyond the shattered viewport. She had done her part. Now, it was up to the rest of humanity to see it through. The battle raged on, but in that moment there was a strange peace. Reyes had faced the unknown, stared into the abyss, and refused to blink for Earth, for humanity. She had made her stand. And as the first wave of human ships poured through the breach, their weapons blazing, it was clear that her sacrifice had not been in vain. The final war was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, there was hope. The strike team moved cautiously through the dimly lit corridors of the mothership, their footsteps echoing softly against the metallic walls. The air was thick with an unnatural hum, a low vibration that seemed to resonate in their chests. Sergeant Diaz led the way, his grip tight on his pulse rifle, eyes scanning every shadow for movement. "This place feels alive," he muttered under his breath, his voice barely audible over the eerie hum. "Stay sharp, we don't know what's waiting for us." As they advanced, the team began to notice the strange architecture of the ship. The walls weren't smooth or angular like human designs. Instead, they were organic, almost hive-like, with pulsating veins of light running through them. The floor beneath their boots seemed to shift slightly, as if the ship itself were breathing. It was as though they were walking through the body of some colossal, alien creature rather than a machine. The technology embedded in the walls was unlike anything they had ever seen: glowing, bioluminescent panels that responded to their presence, emitting faint pulses of light as they passed. Corporal Vega, the team's tech specialist, paused to examine one of the panels. "This isn't just machinery," she whispered, running a gloved hand over the surface. "It's integrated, like it's grown into the ship itself. I've never seen anything like this before." Her voice carried a mix of awe and unease, a sentiment shared by the rest of the team. The alien tech wasn't just advanced, it was alive, a fusion of biology and engineering that defied human understanding. Further in, the corridors began to widen, opening into vast chambers that stretched high above them. The ceilings were obscured by a dense, web-like network of glowing strands, each one pulsating with a faint, rhythmic energy. The team moved in tight formation, their weapons at the ready, every sense heightened by the oppressive atmosphere. The air grew heavier, filled with a strange, metallic scent that made their throats itch. It was clear that this wasn't just a ship, it was a living, breathing organism, designed by a civilization that had long since mastered the fusion of life and machine. As they pressed deeper, the team began to hear faint, skittering sounds, soft clicks and whispers that seemed to come from all directions. Sergeant Diaz raised a fist, signaling the team to halt. Eyes open, he whispered, "Whatever's out there, it's close." The tension was palpable, every member of the team acutely aware that they were intruders in a place that wasn't meant for them. The alien ship seemed to react to their presence, the lights around them flickering unpredictably, the hum in the air growing louder, more insistent. Then they saw it, a massive chamber at the heart of the ship, its walls lined with what appeared to be pods, each one glowing faintly from within. The pods were translucent, and through the murky fluid inside, they could make out shadowy shapes, alien forms, dormant but unmistakably alive. Corporal Vega's voice was barely a whisper. Are those creatures or something else? No one had an answer. The sight was both mesmerizing and horrifying, a stark reminder of the unknown they were facing. Sergeant Diaz took a deep breath, his voice steady but laced with tension. "We're not here to sightsee. Move in but stay close, and remember, This isn't just a ship. It's watching us." The team nodded, their resolve hardening as they prepared to venture further into the heart of the alien hive. Every step felt heavier, every breath harder to take, as the weight of their mission pressed down on them. They were no longer just soldiers, they were explorers in a realm of the utterly alien, where every shadow could hold a new threat, and every discovery brought them closer to the truth of who, or what, they were up against. The Mothership wasn't just a vessel, it was a living, sentient entity, and it was clear that it didn't take kindly to intruders. The air grew heavy with tension as the team moved cautiously through the alien structure, their footsteps echoing faintly against the metallic walls. The dim, eerie light cast long shadows, making every corner feel like a potential ambush. They had been prepared for the unknown, but nothing could have truly readied them for what came next. Suddenly, the silence was shattered by a low, guttural growl, followed by the unmistakable sound of heavy, clawed feet scraping against the floor. Emerging from the shadows were the alien soldiers, grotesque, towering figures with armored carapaces that seemed to pulse faintly with an otherworldly glow. Their multiple limbs moved with unnatural precision, each one equipped with weapons that hummed with energy, weapons far beyond anything the humans had ever seen. Diaz froze for a split second, his mind racing to process the sight. These weren't just alien beings, they were soldiers, clearly built for war. Their eyes, if you could call them that, glowed with a cold, calculating intelligence. And then, without warning, the first shot was fired. A beam of searing light tore through the air, narrowly missing Carter and leaving a smoldering hole in the wall behind her. The team scattered, diving for cover as more beams followed, each one accompanied by a deafening crackle of energy. "Fall back, we can't take them head-on." Diaz shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. The order was unnecessary. Everyone already knew they were outmatched. The alien soldiers moved with terrifying speed, their grotesque forms twisting and shifting as they advanced. It wasn't just their weaponry that was overwhelming, it was their sheer unpredictability. One moment, they seemed to move with mechanical precision, and the next, their movements became fluid, almost organic, as if their bodies could adapt to any situation. The team retreated, their training kicking in as they moved in unison, covering each other while trying to put distance between themselves and the alien threat. Johnson lobbed a grenade, hoping to slow the advance, but the explosion barely seemed to faze the soldiers. Their armor absorbed the blast as if it were nothing, and they continued their relentless pursuit. "What the hell are these things made of?" Carter yelled, her voice tinged with both fear and frustration. There was no time to answer. The team needed to regroup, to find a way to turn the tide, but every second felt like an eternity as the aliens closed in. As they rounded a corner, Diaz signaled for a momentary halt, his sharp eyes scanning the area for any advantage. "We need to think, not just run," he said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. The alien soldiers were fast, but they weren't infallible. There had to be a pattern, a weakness, something the team could exploit, but for now, survival was the priority. The grotesque forms of the alien soldiers loomed in the distance, their glowing eyes piercing through the dim light, a constant reminder of the overwhelming odds they faced. The retreat was far from over, but Diaz knew one thing for certain: this was no ordinary enemy. These weren't just monsters or mindless creatures. They were soldiers, and they were here to win. The team would need more than courage to survive this. They would need strategy, ingenuity, and perhaps a little luck. But as the sound of those clawed feet grew closer, one thing became painfully clear: the fight for humanity's survival had just entered a terrifying new phase. Dr. Y's fingers trembled as she hovered over the console, her eyes scanning lines of alien code that flickered across the screen. The symbols were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, fluid, almost alive, as if they danced with meaning just out of reach. Hours of relentless focus had brought her to this moment. With a final keystroke, the translation program whirred to life, piecing together fragments of data into a coherent narrative. Her breath hitched as the truth unfolded before her. The aliens weren't here to conquer. They weren't here to enslave or destroy. They were desperate. Their homeworld, a distant planet ravaged by environmental collapse, had become uninhabitable. The data revealed a species on the brink of extinction, their civilization teetering on the edge of annihilation. Earth, with its lush landscapes and abundant resources, was their last hope, a new cradle for their kind. Dr. Y leaned back, her mind racing. "They're not just invaders," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They're refugees." The room fell silent as her words echoed. Captain Reyes stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "That doesn't change what we have to do," he said, his voice steady but heavy with resolve. The team exchanged uneasy glances. The revelation had shifted the moral landscape, but the stakes remained the same. Earth was their home, and they couldn't afford to lose it, no matter the cost. Dr. Y nodded, her heart pounding. The alien data had revealed more than just their plight, it had exposed their plan. The Mothership, a colossal vessel hovering in Earth's orbit, wasn't just a weapon. It was a terraforming engine, designed to reshape the planet's atmosphere to match the aliens' biological needs. Once activated, the process would be irreversible. Earth's oceans would acidify, its skies would darken, and its ecosystems would collapse. Humanity would be left with nothing but a poisoned world. The team moved quickly, their earlier sense of urgency now tinged with grim determination. Dr. Y relayed the specifics of the aliens' plan, her voice tight with focus. The Mothership's core, a massive reactor at the heart of the vessel, was the key. If they could sabotage it, they could halt the terraforming process before it began, but the task was fraught with danger. The core was heavily guarded, and the aliens' technology was far beyond anything humanity had faced. As the team prepared for the mission, Dr. Y couldn't shake the weight of what they were about to do. The aliens weren't monsters. They were survivors, driven by the same instinct to protect their own that humanity clung to. But in the face of extinction, there was no room for mercy. "We're fighting for our survival," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else, "and so are they." The tension in the room was palpable as they suited up, each member of the team steeling themselves for what lay ahead. Captain Reyes gave the final briefing, his voice cutting through the silence. "This isn't just about us," he said. "It's about every living thing on this planet. We don't have the luxury of hesitation." Dr. Y adjusted her equipment, her mind replaying the alien data. The symbols, the words, the desperate plea hidden within the code, it all painted a picture of a species fighting for its future. But so was humanity. As the team boarded their shuttle, she took one last look at the Earth below, its blue-green surface glowing in the darkness. This was their home, and they would defend it, no matter the cost. The shuttle's engines roared to life, carrying them toward the Mothership and the heart of the alien threat. Dr. Y clenched her fists, her resolve hardening. They weren't just fighting invaders, they were fighting for the right to exist, and in that moment, she knew there was no turning back. The air was thick with tension as the team pushed forward, their boots echoing against the metallic floor of the alien structure. Every step brought them closer to the core, but with it came an unrelenting wave of resistance. The aliens, there forms a grotesque blend of organic and mechanical, swarmed from every direction, their glowing eyes fixed on the intruders. The team moved as one, their training and camaraderie their only shield against the chaos. Diaz, always the first to charge into danger, led the way. His rifle barked with precision, each shot finding its mark, but the enemy was endless, their numbers overwhelming. "Stay close," he shouted over the din, his voice a steady anchor amidst the storm. The team fought with everything they had, their movements fueled by desperation and the weight of humanity's survival resting on their shoulders. Every corridor they cleared, every door they breached, brought them closer to their goal, but the cost was steep. As they neared the core, the resistance intensified. The aliens seemed to sense the importance of this final stretch, throwing themselves at the team with a ferocity that bordered on madness. Explosions rocked the walls, sending shards of metal and alien ichor flying in every direction. Diaz, his armor dented and scorched, turned to the team, his face a mask of determination. "This is it," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We're not turning back now," but the enemy had other plans. A massive wave of aliens surged forward, cutting off their path. The team was pinned, their ammunition running low. Diaz glanced at his comrades, then at the core's control panel just beyond the alien horde. Without hesitation, he made his choice. "I'll hold them off," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "You get to the core, finish this." The team protested, their voices rising in unison, but Diaz was already moving. He charged into the fray, his rifle blazing, drawing the aliens' attention. "Go," he shouted, his voice a roar that drowned out the chaos. "Finish this." His words were a command, a plea, and a farewell all at once. The team hesitated for only a moment before turning and sprinting toward the core, their hearts heavy but their resolve unshaken. Diaz fought like a man possessed, his every move a testament to his courage. He knew he wouldn't make it out alive, but that didn't matter. What mattered was giving the team the time they needed. As the aliens closed in, he stood his ground, his final moments a blur of gunfire and defiance. His sacrifice wasn't in vain. The team reached the core's control panel, their hands trembling as they prepared to activate the device that could end the war. The alien structure seemed to shudder, as if aware of the impending blow. The team worked swiftly, their movements precise despite the chaos around them. Diaz's voice echoed in their minds, his final words a reminder of what was at stake. They didn't have time to mourn, not yet. The fight wasn't over, but thanks to Diaz, they had a chance. And in that moment, that was enough. The tension aboard the mothership reached a fever pitch as the core began its ominous destabilization. A low, rhythmic hum echoed through the corridors, growing louder with each passing second. The once stable energy source, now a volatile maelstrom of light and force, pulsed erratically, casting eerie shadows across the command deck. Alarms blared, their shrill warnings cutting through the cacophony of chaos. Every system on the ship flickered and faltered, as if the vessel itself knew its end was near. Reyes, gripping the edge of the console, stared at the readouts with a mix of triumph and grim resolve. The mission had succeeded. They had infiltrated the alien fleet, sabotaged their core, and set the stage for humanity's survival, but victory came at a cost. There was no escape now, no way to outrun the cataclysm they had unleashed. Turning to the comms officer, Reyes' voice was steady, though the weight of their impending fate was palpable. "Open a channel to Earth," she said, her tone firm. "This is Captain Reyes. We've done it. The core is destabilizing, and the alien fleet won't survive the blast." But we're not coming back. Tell our story, let them know what we did here today. The silence that followed was deafening. Every member of the crew exchanged glances, their faces etched with a quiet understanding. This was it, the final act of defiance against an enemy that had pushed humanity to the brink. There were no tears, no panicked cries, only a shared sense of purpose. They had chosen this path, knowing it would lead to their end, but also knowing it would save countless lives back home. As the countdown to detonation began, the crew worked with a precision born of desperation. Each second felt like an eternity, the ship groaning under the strain of the unstable core. Reyes moved to the observation window, her reflection framed by the swirling chaos outside. Streaks of light from the alien fleet's dying ships illuminated the void, a fleeting testament to their final stand. She thought of Earth, its cities, its people, its fragile beauty, and felt a surge of pride. They had bought humanity a fighting chance, a future free from the shadow of annihilation. The moment of detonation arrived with a blinding flash, a shockwave of energy that tore through the mothership and the surrounding alien vessels. The force of the explosion rippled outward, consuming everything in its path. For a brief, brilliant instant, the darkness of space was replaced by a searing light, a beacon of sacrifice that would echo across the stars. Back on Earth, the transmission from Reyes played on repeat, her words a rallying cry for a species on the edge of extinction. Tell our story, she had said, and they would. The sacrifice of Reyes and her crew became a symbol of human resilience, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, courage and unity could light the way forward. Their names would be etched into history, not as victims, but as heroes who had stared into the abyss and refused to blink. As the light faded and the debris settled, the alien fleet was no more. The threat had been neutralized, but the cost was immeasurable. The void, once filled with the hum of engines and the glow of alien technology, was now silent, a stark reminder of the price of survival. Yet in that silence, there was hope, a hope born from sacrifice, from the unyielding spirit of those who had given everything to protect the future. And as Earth began to rebuild, to rise from the ashes of war, the story of Reyes and her crew would serve as a guiding light, a testament to the enduring strength of humanity. The celebration on Earth was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Cities lit up with fireworks that painted the night sky in dazzling colors, while crowds gathered in streets and squares, cheering, singing, and embracing one another. For the first time in years, there was hope, real, tangible hope, that the nightmare of war was over. Yet amidst the jubilation, General Hale stood apart, his gaze fixed on the horizon. The cheers and laughter around him felt distant, almost surreal. In his mind, he replayed the final moments of the battle, the sacrifices made, and the cost of victory. To the world, this was the end of a long, harrowing chapter, but to him, it was merely the beginning. As the festivities continued, Hale retreated to a quiet corner of the military command center. The weight of leadership bore down on him, heavier now than ever before. He replayed the words he had spoken to his closest advisors. This was just one battle. The universe is vast, and we've made enemies today. It wasn't pessimism that drove him, it was clarity. The alien forces they had defeated were but a fraction of what lay beyond the stars. Their technology, their motives, and their sheer numbers were still largely unknown, and now Earth had drawn their attention. Victory had come at a price, and that price was time. Time to rebuild, to prepare, and to face what might come next. The process of rebuilding began almost immediately. Cities that had been reduced to rubble were cleared, and makeshift shelters were replaced with sturdy, fortified structures. Factories that had once produced weapons of war shifted their focus to creating tools for survival and innovation. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly, studying the alien technology they had recovered. Every piece of debris, every fragment of their enemies' ships, was analyzed with meticulous care. The hope was that by understanding their adversaries, humanity could better defend itself in the future. But progress was slow, and the challenges were immense. One of the most pressing issues was the psychological toll the war had taken on the population. Survivors carried scars, both visible and invisible. Entire communities had been wiped out, families torn apart, and the trauma of loss lingered in the air like a heavy fog. Counseling centers and support groups sprang up in every corner of the globe, offering solace to those who had endured the unimaginable. Yet, even as people began to heal, there was a lingering sense of unease. The attacks had shattered the illusion of safety, and now, every shadow seemed to hold a threat. General Hale knew that rebuilding physical infrastructure was only part of the battle. The true challenge lay in uniting humanity. The war had forced nations to set aside their differences and work together, but old rivalries and suspicions still simmered beneath the surface. Hale made it his mission to strengthen these fragile alliances, traveling across the globe to meet with leaders and communities. He spoke of unity, of the need to stand together in the face of an uncertain future. His words resonated with many, but not all. Some saw his warnings as fear-mongering, while others simply wanted to move on, to forget the horrors they had endured. As the months passed, Hale's fears began to take shape. Reports trickled in of strange signals detected on the edge of the solar system, faint but unmistakable. Scouts sent to investigate returned with troubling news. Remnants of the alien fleet, scattered and disorganized, but regrouping. It was a chilling reminder that the war was far from over. Hale's words echoed in the minds of those who had heard them. "We've made enemies today." The celebration on Earth now felt like a distant memory, replaced by a grim determination to survive. The work ahead was daunting, but humanity had proven its resilience time and time again. As the first ships of a new defensive fleet rolled off the assembly lines, there was a sense of cautious optimism. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, humanity was not just fighting to survive, it was fighting for its future. And in the quiet moments, when the weight of it all threatened to overwhelm him, General Hale allowed himself a small flicker of hope. They had faced the unknown before, and they would do so again, together. The discovery of the lone alien survivor sent shockwaves through the remnants of humanity. Found in the ruins of what was once a bustling city, the creature was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Its sleek, metallic exoskeleton shimmered under the dim light of the shattered skyline, and its elongated limbs moved with an eerie, almost mechanical precision. But it was the alien's voice, cold, resonant, and dripping with an otherworldly authority, that left the survivors frozen in dread. "You have won nothing," it said, its words echoing like a death knell. "The others are coming." For years, humanity had fought tirelessly against the alien invaders, believing that each battle brought them closer to victory. The war had cost billions of lives, reduced cities to ash, and pushed the survivors to the brink of extinction. Yet, in that moment, the chilling declaration from the alien shattered any illusion of triumph. The war they thought they had won was merely the opening act of a far greater conflict. The alien's cryptic warning hinted at something far more sinister. Who were the others? Were they reinforcements, a second wave of invaders with even more advanced technology and strategies? Or were they something entirely different, an even greater threat lying in wait, biding their time while humanity exhausted itself in battle? The survivors' minds raced with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. Scientists and military leaders scrambled to decipher the aliens' words. Its language was a complex tapestry of clicks, hums, and tonal shifts, but one thing was clear: the message was a dire prophecy. The aliens spoke of a force beyond comprehension, a power that had orchestrated the invasion as a mere test of humanity's resilience. If this was true, then the war humanity had fought so hard to survive was nothing more than a prelude to annihilation. Panic began to spread among the survivors. The fragile hope that had begun to rebuild in the aftermath of the invasion was now crumbling. Supplies were dwindling, and the survivors were scattered across the globe, struggling to maintain communication. The aliens' warning had not only reignited fear, but also sown seeds of distrust. Some believed the creature was lying, trying to demoralize humanity in its final moments. Others saw it as a harbinger of doom, a grim reminder that their fight was far from over. As the days turned into weeks, strange phenomena began to occur. Unexplained energy surges were detected deep within the Earth's crust, and the skies above the ruined cities flickered with unnatural lights. Reports of strange, shadowy figures lurking in the wastelands further fueled the growing unease. Were these signs of the others the alien had spoken of, or was humanity's paranoia creating phantoms where none existed? The alien itself became a focal point of both fear and fascination. Its captivity was a delicate balance. No one knew if it was a prisoner or a spy, sent to deliver its message and sow chaos. Its presence was a constant reminder of the unknown, a living enigma that defied all attempts at understanding. Yet, amidst the fear, there were those who saw an opportunity. If the alien could be persuaded to share more, humanity might gain the knowledge needed to prepare for whatever was coming. But time was running out. The alien's warning had set a clock ticking, and every passing moment brought humanity closer to an uncertain future. The survivors knew they had to unite, to pool their resources and knowledge if they were to stand any chance against the looming threat. Yet, old divisions and rivalries threatened to tear them apart. The war had changed humanity, but it had also exposed its flaws that could prove fatal in the face of a greater enemy. The aliens' words lingered like a dark cloud over the survivors, a haunting reminder that their fight was far from over. The war they thought they had won was merely the beginning, and the true battle for survival was yet to come. The remnants of the alien technology, scattered across the battlefield like shards of a shattered star, became the focus of humanity's most brilliant minds. Teams of scientists, engineers, and historians worked tirelessly to decipher the strange artifacts, their surfaces etched with patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. Dr. Y, a leading figure in the effort, often reminded her colleagues of the gravity of their task. "We must be careful," she would say, her voice steady but laced with urgency. Power like this can corrupt. It's not just about understanding it, it's about ensuring we don't lose ourselves in the process. The alien devices defied conventional logic, operating on principles that seemed to bend the laws of physics. One artifact, a sleek, crystalline structure no larger than a human hand, emitted a faint hum that resonated with the air itself. When activated, it created a localized distortion in gravity, allowing objects to float as if weightless. Another, a disc-shaped object covered in intricate, glowing glyphs, appeared to manipulate time itself, slowing or accelerating its flow within a confined area. These discoveries sparked both awe and unease. The potential applications were staggering: clean energy, faster than light travel, even the ability to heal previously incurable diseases. But with such power came profound ethical questions. Debates erupted among the survivors, dividing them into factions. Some, like Dr. Y, advocated for a cautious approach. They argued that humanity wasn't ready for such advanced technology, that rushing to harness it could lead to catastrophic consequences. "We've seen what happens when power is misused," she said during a heated council meeting. "The alien war nearly wiped us out. We can't afford to repeat those mistakes." Others, however, saw the technology as a lifeline, a way to rebuild civilization and secure humanity's future. "This is our chance to leap forward," countered Dr. Elias Carter, a physicist known for his bold ideas. "We can't let fear hold us back. The universe has given us a gift, and it's our duty to use it." The tension between these perspectives grew, threatening to fracture the fragile unity that had emerged in the wake of the war. In one corner of the research facility, a group of engineers worked on reverse engineering a device capable of generating limitless energy. Its potential to solve the world's energy crisis was undeniable, but early tests revealed a troubling side effect. The device emitted a strange, resonant frequency that seemed to affect the minds of those nearby, causing vivid hallucinations and erratic behavior. "It's as if the technology is testing us," Dr. Y observed, her tone somber. "It's not just a tool, it's a challenge. Can we handle this responsibility, or will it destroy us?" Meanwhile, in another part of the facility, a team of biologists experimented with a nanotech pod recovered from the alien wreckage. The pod contained microscopic machines capable of repairing cellular damage at an unprecedented rate, raising the possibility of curing diseases and extending human lifespans. But when tested on a volunteer, the nanobots began rewriting the subject's DNA, triggering unexpected mutations. The incident sparked outrage and fear, with some calling for an immediate halt to all experiments. "We're playing with forces we don't fully understand," warned Dr. Y. "Every breakthrough comes with a price. We need to ask ourselves, are we willing to pay it?" As the debates raged on, the survivors found themselves at a crossroads. The alien technology offered a chance to rebuild, to reach heights previously unimaginable. But it also carried the risk of repeating the same mistakes that had led to the war in the first place. Dr. Y's words echoed in the minds of those who listened. This isn't just about survival. It's about who we become in the process. Do we let this power define us, or do we use it to define a better future? The answer, it seemed, was still written in the stars. The tension in the command center was palpable, a dense cloud of anticipation hanging over the room as the monitors lit up with a new, unfamiliar pattern. This wasn't just another anomaly, this was a signal, distinct and deliberate, emanating from deep within the galaxy. The room fell silent as the data streamed in, each blip and frequency a cryptic message from the void. General Hale stood at the center of it all, his steely gaze fixed on the screen. "We've beaten them once," he declared, his voice steady but edged with determination. "We'll do it again." The signal was unlike anything humanity had encountered before. It pulsed with a rhythm that seemed almost alive, a haunting echo of intelligence from a corner of the cosmos no human ship had ever ventured near. Scientists scrambled to decode its meaning, their fingers flying over keyboards as they analyzed its structure. Was it a warning, a declaration of war? Or perhaps something far more incomprehensible, The uncertainty gnawed at the edges of their resolve, but there was no time for hesitation. The stakes were too high. Across Earth, the news spread like wildfire. Cities buzzed with speculation, and social media exploded with theories. Some saw the signal as a sign of hope, proof that humanity wasn't alone in the universe. Others viewed it with dread, a grim reminder of the horrors they had faced before. The scars of the last war were still fresh, etched into the collective memory of a species that had barely survived. But this time, humanity wasn't caught off guard. They were ready, or as ready as they could be. General Hale wasted no time. He convened an emergency meeting with the world's top military and scientific leaders, their faces grim but resolute. "This isn't just about survival anymore," he began, his tone cutting through the tension. "It's about proving that we can stand against whatever the universe throws at us. We've come too far to falter now." The room nodded in unison, a silent agreement that this was a fight they couldn't afford to lose. Preparations began in earnest. Ships were retrofitted with the latest technology, their hulls reinforced with materials designed to withstand the harshest conditions of deep space. Pilots trained relentlessly, their drills simulating every conceivable scenario. Scientists worked around the clock, their labs a hive of activity as they developed new weapons and defensive measures. The world watched, holding its breath, as humanity rallied together in a way it hadn't in centuries. But beneath the surface, there was an undercurrent of unease. The signal wasn't just a call to arms, it was a mystery, one that defied easy explanation. Some speculated it was a trap, a lure designed to draw humanity into a fight they couldn't win. Others believed it was a test, a challenge from an advanced civilization to see if humanity was worthy of joining the cosmic stage. And then there were those who feared it was something far worse, a harbinger of an enemy they couldn't yet comprehend. As the days turned into weeks, the signal grew stronger, its patterns becoming more complex. It was as if whatever was sending it knew it had been detected and was now reaching out with greater urgency. The tension mounted, the weight of the unknown pressing down on every decision, but through it all, General Hale remained a pillar of strength. "We don't know what's out there," he admitted in a rare moment of candor. "But we do know this: we've faced the unknown before, and we've come out stronger. This time will be no different." The final preparations were made, the fleet assembled, and the course set. Humanity stood on the brink of a new chapter, one that would define their place in the universe. The signal was no longer just a message, it was a challenge, a call to action that would test their courage, their ingenuity, and their will to survive. As the ships launched into the void, one thing was clear: this was humanity's last stand against the unknown, and they would meet it head-on. The story takes a dramatic turn as we shift our focus to a distant, desolate planet far beyond the reaches of Earth. Here, beneath a sky painted in hues of deep crimson and swirling violet, an alien armada of unimaginable scale begins to assemble. Ships of every size and design hover in formation, their surfaces glinting with an otherworldly sheen, as if forged from materials unknown to human science. The air is thick with tension, a palpable sense of purpose that seems to vibrate through the very atmosphere. This is not just a gathering of forces, it is the beginning of a war that will shake the foundations of the cosmos. At the heart of this armada stands their leader, a towering figure whose presence commands both fear and reverence. Clad in armor that seems to absorb the light around it, their voice echoes across the planet's barren surface, a deep, resonant tone that carries the weight of centuries of conquest. "Earth will fall," they declare, their words slicing through the silence like a blade. "The humans will learn their place." It is not merely a threat, It is a prophecy, a declaration of intent that leaves no room for doubt. This leader, whose name is whispered in dread across the stars, has set their sights on humanity, and they will not stop until Earth is brought to its knees. The Armada itself is a marvel of alien engineering, a testament to the technological prowess of a civilization that has long surpassed humanity's own. Massive warships, bristling with weapons that defy comprehension, hover alongside sleek, predatory vessels designed for speed and precision. Among them are colossal carriers, each one housing thousands of warriors, their armor glowing faintly with an eerie, bioluminescent light. These soldiers are not mere fighters, they are the embodiment of their leader's will, forged in the fires of countless battles and honed to perfection. Their loyalty is absolute, their resolve unshakable. As the Armada prepares for the journey to Earth, the leader steps onto a towering platform overlooking the gathering forces. Their gaze sweeps across the ranks, taking in the sheer magnitude of their power. This is not just an invasion, it is a reckoning. For years, humanity has expanded its reach, venturing into the stars with a mixture of curiosity and arrogance. But now the tables have turned. The aliens, once content to observe from the shadows, have decided that humanity's time is up. Their leader's vow is not just a promise of destruction. It is a statement of intent, a declaration that the galaxy will no longer tolerate humanity's presence. The stage is set for a conflict unlike any other. Earth, with its fragile alliances and fractured nations, stands unaware of the storm that is about to descend upon it. The aliens, with their superior technology and unwavering resolve, are prepared to strike with a ferocity that will leave humanity reeling. But this is not just a battle for survival. It is a clash of ideologies, a war that will determine the fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. The leader's words hang in the air, a chilling reminder of what is to come. The humans will learn their place, and as the Armada begins its journey, the cosmos holds its breath, waiting for the moment when the final war begins. The Earth, once a vibrant cradle of life, now stood as a fragile bastion against the encroaching darkness. Humanity, battered but unbroken, had learned a hard lesson from the initial onslaught. The enemy had struck swiftly, ruthlessly, and without warning. This time, there would be no room for unpreparedness. The survivors, united under a singular purpose, began an unprecedented endeavor, the construction of a planetary defense network unlike anything the world had ever seen. At the heart of this monumental effort was Admiral Reyes, a figure whose unwavering resolve had become a beacon of hope for the beleaguered remnants of humanity. Under her leadership, the project took shape, fueled by a desperate determination to ensure that Earth would never again be caught off guard. The defense network was a marvel of ingenuity, blending human engineering with the advanced technology salvaged from the alien wreckage. Massive orbital platforms, bristling with energy weapons and kinetic launchers, began to take form in the void above Earth. These stations, interconnected by a web of communication relays and sensor arrays, were designed to detect and neutralize any threat long before it could reach the planet's surface. On the ground, sprawling installations housed the infrastructure needed to support the network, their sleek, alien-inspired designs a stark contrast to the ruined cities that surrounded them. It was a race against time, a frantic effort to fortify humanity's last stand before the enemy returned in force. Reyes stood at the helm of this colossal undertaking, her voice steady but laced with urgency as she addressed the teams working tirelessly to bring the network online. "We won't be caught off guard again," she declared, her words echoing through the command centers and construction sites alike. It was more than a promise, It was a vow, a declaration of defiance in the face of annihilation. Yet, even as the project progressed, the weight of their situation bore down on everyone involved. The survivors, already stretched thin by the demands of survival, now faced the added strain of this monumental task. Tension simmered beneath the surface, a volatile mix of fear, exhaustion, and fraying nerves. Among the survivors, disagreements began to flare. Some argued that the resources being poured into the defense network would be better spent on rebuilding what had been lost or fortifying the remaining strongholds. Others questioned whether the alien technology could even be trusted, pointing to the devastation it had already wrought. Reyes, however, remained steadfast. "This isn't just about survival," she reminded them. "It's about ensuring that we have a future. If we don't stop them here, if we don't stand our ground, then everything we've fought for will mean nothing." Her conviction was unshakable, but the strain of leadership was evident in the lines etched into her face and the weariness in her eyes. As the network neared completion, the first signs of its capabilities began to emerge. The orbital platforms, now fully operational, conducted a series of test firings that lit up the night sky with dazzling displays of energy and precision. The sensors, calibrated to detect even the faintest disturbances in space-time, provided an unprecedented level of surveillance, stretching far beyond the reaches of the solar system. For a brief moment, there was a glimmer of hope, a sense that perhaps, just perhaps, humanity might have a fighting chance. But hope, as they had learned all too well, was a fragile thing. The enemy was out there, lurking in the shadows, their intentions as inscrutable as their motives. And as the final pieces of the defense network fell into place, the question lingered in the minds of every survivor: would it be enough? The answer, they knew, would come soon enough. Until then, they worked, they waited, and they prepared. For when the storm broke, it would be unlike anything they had ever faced. And this time, there would be no second chances. As the war with the unknown alien forces raged on, a quiet but determined faction of humans began to rise, their voices cutting through the chaos with a message that seemed almost heretical to the war-weary masses. They were the peace advocates, a group of scientists, philosophers, and ordinary citizens who dared to challenge the narrative that had gripped humanity for so long. Their leader, Dr. Rajesh Patel, a renowned astrophysicist and former advisor to the United Earth Coalition, became the face of this movement. With a calm yet impassioned demeanor, he stood before the fractured remnants of Earth's leadership, pleading for a different path. "We can't keep fighting forever," he said, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "There has to be another way. What if we've misunderstood them? What if this war is nothing more than a tragic mistake?" Dr. Patel's words were met with silence, then murmurs of disbelief. The idea that the aliens might not be the merciless invaders they were portrayed as seemed ludicrous to many. After all, the attacks had been relentless, the destruction catastrophic, but Patel persisted, presenting evidence that had been overlooked in the fog of war. He pointed to the alien ships' erratic behavior, their refusal to engage in direct communication, and the strange patterns of their movements. What if their actions aren't born of malice, but desperation? He argued, what if they're not here to conquer, but to survive? We've never tried to understand them, only to destroy them. The peace advocates' case was bolstered by a handful of scientists who had studied the alien technology recovered from battlefields. They noted that much of it was defensive in nature, designed to shield rather than attack. Some even speculated that the aliens' initial aggression might have been a reaction to humanity's own actions, a misinterpretation of Earth's early attempts to establish contact. Think about it, Patel urged. Our first signals to them were filled with warnings and demands. What if they took that as a declaration of war? What if we've been fighting a battle that didn't need to happen? Despite the logic of their arguments, the peace advocates faced an uphill battle. The scars of war ran deep, and the majority of humanity was unwilling to entertain the idea of extending an olive branch to beings they saw as monsters. Military leaders dismissed Patel's pleas as naive, accusing him of putting humanity at risk with his idealism. You're asking us to lower our defenses while they are still out there, still attacking, one general snapped during a heated council meeting. We can't afford to gamble with our survival, but Patel refused to back down. He organized rallies, wrote impassioned essays, and even reached out to the few alien captives humanity had managed to detain, hoping to find a way to bridge the divide. His efforts gained traction among younger generations who had grown up in the shadow of war and longed for a different future. They saw in Patel a glimmer of hope, a chance to break the cycle of violence that had consumed their world. Yet for all his determination, Patel's words often fell on deaf ears. The fear and hatred that had fueled the war were too deeply ingrained, too powerful to be swayed by reason alone. Even as the peace advocates grew in number, their message was drowned out by the clamor of battle and the cries for vengeance. Still, Patel and his followers held fast, their conviction unwavering. They believed that if humanity could find the courage to listen, to truly understand the aliens, there might still be a chance for peace, a chance to end the war not with a final, devastating blow, but with an outstretched hand. The question remained, would humanity choose to listen before it was too late? The sky above Earth shimmered with an eerie, otherworldly glow as the alien armada descended. Their ships, sleek and menacing, moved with a precision that spoke of technology far beyond human understanding. These weren't the scattered remnants of previous skirmishes. This was a full-scale invasion force, their numbers stretching across the horizon like a swarm of metallic locusts. Each vessel pulsed with an ominous energy, their design both alien and terrifyingly efficient. The sight alone was enough to send a chill through even the most hardened soldier. This was no ordinary battle, it was a fight for survival, a clash between the last remnants of humanity and an enemy determined to erase them from existence. On the ground, General Hale stood at the forefront of Earth's defenses, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "Hold the line," he roared, his words echoing across the battlefield. "This is our home, and we'll defend it to the last breath." His command wasn't just a rallying cry, it was a declaration of defiance, a promise that humanity wouldn't go quietly into the night. Around him, soldiers tightened their grips on weapons, their faces set with determination. They knew the odds were against them. They knew the enemy was stronger, faster, and more advanced. But they also knew what they were fighting for, not just their lives, but the very idea of humanity's place in the universe. The first wave of alien ships unleashed a barrage of energy weapons, their beams slicing through the atmosphere with blinding intensity. Human defenses scrambled to respond, their own weapons firing in a desperate attempt to hold back the onslaught. Explosions lit up the sky, the thunderous roar of battle drowning out all other sounds. It was chaos, but within that chaos, there was a strange kind of order. Every soldier, every pilot, every technician played their part, their actions driven by a shared purpose. This wasn't just a battle of technology or numbers, it was a battle of wills. In the midst of the carnage, a single moment stood out. A squadron of human fighters, outnumbered and outgunned, managed to take down one of the larger alien vessels. The ship's hull cracked and splintered, its energy core destabilizing in a brilliant flash of light. The victory was short-lived, but it was a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity could strike back. It was a spark of hope, a sign that the aliens weren't invincible, but the fight was far from over. As the battle raged on, it became clear that the aliens had brought more than just ships and weapons. Strange, biomechanical creatures began to emerge from the wreckage. Their forms a grotesque blend of flesh and machine. These were the foot soldiers of the invasion, relentless and unyielding. Human forces scrambled to adapt, their tactics shifting as they faced this new threat. It was a brutal, exhausting struggle, each moment a test of endurance and resolve. Through it all, General Hale remained a steady presence, his voice a constant reminder of what they were fighting for. "This is our home," he repeated, his tone unwavering. "We don't retreat, we don't surrender, we fight." His words carried a weight that transcended the battlefield, reaching not just the soldiers but everyone watching from afar. This wasn't just a war for territory, it was a war for the soul of humanity, and as long as there was breath in their bodies, they would stand their ground. The alien armada pressed forward, their relentless advance a stark reminder of the stakes. But for every step they took, humanity pushed back, their determination unshakable. This was their last stand, their final chance to prove that even in the darkest hour, the light of hope could still shine. The battle was far from over, but one thing was certain: humanity would not go down without a fight. The defense network, a marvel of human ingenuity and desperation, held firm at first. Its intricate web of orbital satellites, armed with plasma cannons and missile arrays, created a barrier that seemed insurmountable. For hours, the skies above Earth burned with the light of countless explosions as the alien fleet clashed with the automated defenses. The network's AI-driven targeting systems worked with precision, picking off alien ships one by one, buying humanity precious time to regroup. But the aliens were not just relentless, they were cunning. As the battle raged on, something shifted. The enemy vessels began to move in patterns that defied logic, their formations fluid and unpredictable. They adapted to the defense network's tactics with terrifying speed, exploiting weaknesses in the system's programming. The plasma cannons, once deadly accurate, began to miss their marks. The missile arrays, designed to overwhelm with sheer numbers, found their targets evading them with ease. The aliens were learning, evolving their strategies in real time, and the defense network, for all its brilliance, couldn't keep up. Reyes' voice crackled over the comms, sharp and urgent. "We're losing ground, we need reinforcements now." His words carried the weight of a commander who had seen too much, who knew what was at stake. The situation was dire. The outer defenses, once a symbol of hope, were crumbling. Alien ships breached the perimeter in growing numbers, their sleek, dark hulls slicing through the chaos like predators closing in on wounded prey. The battle had shifted from a hopeful stand to a desperate scramble. On the ground, civilians watched in horror as the sky above them turned into a war zone. Debris from destroyed satellites rained down, igniting fires and spreading panic. The air was thick with the smell of burning metal and the acrid tang of ionized plasma. Everywhere, the sound of alarms blared, a constant reminder of how close humanity was to the edge. Reyes' call for reinforcements echoed across the command centers, but the truth was becoming painfully clear. There were no reinforcements to send. The human fleet, already stretched thin, was engaged in skirmishes across the globe. Every ship, every pilot, every weapon was already in play. The aliens had forced humanity into a corner, and the only way out was through. Yet, even in the face of overwhelming odds, there was no surrender. Soldiers on the front lines fought with a ferocity born of desperation, their resolve unbroken. Pilots in battered fighters dove into the fray, knowing they might not return. Engineers worked tirelessly to patch up the defense network, to find some way to turn the tide. The aliens might have breached the outer defenses, but they hadn't broken humanity's spirit. This moment, as dire as it was, also revealed something profound about the human condition. In the face of extinction, there was no room for division, no time for hesitation. The world, once fractured by borders and ideologies, had come together as one. Reyes' voice, though filled with urgency, also carried a quiet determination. "We hold the line," he said, not just to his troops but to everyone listening. "We hold it no matter what." The aliens might have adapted to the defense network, but they hadn't accounted for the resilience of the human spirit. As the battle raged on, it became clear that this wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the very essence of what it meant to be human. And in that fight, even as the ground slipped away, there was still hope. Dr. Patel stood in the dimly lit communications hub, her fingers trembling slightly as she adjusted the frequency dial. The room was silent, save for the low hum of the equipment and the faint crackle of static. She had spent weeks preparing for this moment, crafting every word with precision, hoping that diplomacy could achieve what weapons had failed to do. The fate of humanity rested on this transmission, and she knew there would be no second chance. The alien signal had been detected just hours earlier, a faint but deliberate pulse, a clear attempt to communicate. Dr. Patel had insisted on being the one to respond. Her expertise in xenolinguistics and interspecies diplomacy made her the obvious choice, though the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on her shoulders. She took a deep breath, steadied her voice, and began to speak. "To the representatives of your kind, I am Dr. Annika Patel, speaking on behalf of Earth and its people. We have no desire for further conflict. Our actions, though misguided, were born of fear and misunderstanding. We seek peace, not war. We propose an immediate ceasefire and a dialogue to address the grievances between us. Let us find a way to coexist for the sake of all our futures." The room held its breath, seconds stretched into minutes, the silence growing heavier with each passing moment. Then, without warning, the speakers crackled to life. The voice that emerged was deep, guttural, and laced with an unmistakable disdain. It spoke in perfect English, its tone cold and unyielding. "Your words mean nothing, Dr. Patel. Your species is a plague. You consume, destroy, and spread chaos wherever you tread. You cannot negotiate what you do not understand. There will be no ceasefire." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the room in stunned silence. Dr. Patel stood frozen, her mind racing. She had anticipated resistance, perhaps even hostility, but the sheer finality of the alien leader's words struck her like a physical blow. Their condemnation was absolute, their verdict unequivocal. Humanity, in their eyes, was irredeemable. The implications of this exchange were staggering. If the aliens viewed humanity as a disease, then their actions were not merely acts of war, but of extermination. This was no longer a battle for resources or territory. It was a fight for survival. Dr. Patel's heart sank as she realized the grim truth. Diplomacy had failed. The aliens were not interested in coexistence. They sought only one outcome, the eradication of humanity. Around her, the crew exchanged uneasy glances. The weight of the alien leader's words hung in the air, a dark cloud that threatened to suffocate any lingering hope. But Dr. Patel refused to give in to despair. She straightened her shoulders, her resolve hardening. If words could not sway the aliens, then perhaps actions could. Humanity, for all its flaws, had always been a species of resilience and ingenuity. If they were to survive, they would need to harness those qualities like never before. As the room buzzed with anxious murmurs, Dr. Patel turned to her team. "This isn't over," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. "We may have lost this round, but we still have a chance. We'll find another way, another path to survival. If they won't listen to our words, then we'll force them to see our worth through our actions." Her words ignited a spark of determination in the room. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges and unimaginable risks, but they had no choice but to press forward. Humanity's last stand would require more than courage. It would demand unity, creativity, and an unshakable belief in their right to exist. As the team began to strategize, Dr. Patel glanced at the now silent console. The alien leader's words echoed in her mind, a haunting reminder of the stakes they faced. But even in the face of such adversity, she refused to let hope die. For in the darkest moments, it was hope that often lit the way forward, and humanity, she vowed, would not go quietly into the night. The tension aboard the command ship was palpable, a thick, almost suffocating weight pressing down on every soul. Hale stood at the center of the bridge, her hands clenched into fists at her sides, her eyes locked on the holographic display that showed the alien fleet's relentless advance. They were out of time. Every second ticked closer to the inevitable, an unstoppable force meeting an unprepared defense. But Hale wasn't one to surrender to inevitability. "Not yet, we need to draw them in," she said, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "They're too scattered, too unpredictable. If we can concentrate their forces, we might stand a chance." The room seemed to hold its breath as she laid out the plan, a desperate gambit that hinged on deception and timing. The idea was simple in theory, but fraught with risk. A decoy signal, broadcasting from a seemingly vulnerable outpost, would mimic the energy signature of a human command hub. The hope was that the aliens, driven by their insatiable hunger for strategic targets, would converge on the false location, leaving their flanks exposed. It was a gamble, one that required precision, coordination, and a healthy dose of luck. "This is our last chance," Hale said, her tone firm but laced with an urgency that sent a shiver through the room. "Make it count." The crew sprang into action, their movements sharp and deliberate. Engineers recalibrated the decoy transmitter, ensuring the signal was strong enough to mimic a high-value target, but subtle enough to avoid raising suspicion. Pilots prepped their ships, their faces grim but resolute. Every member of the fleet knew the stakes. This wasn't just another battle, it was a Hail Mary pass in the face of annihilation. As the decoy signal began to pulse through the void, the human fleet positioned itself for the ambush. Ships cloaked themselves in the shadow of nearby asteroids, their engines running silent to avoid detection. Hale's command ship, a sleek, heavily armored vessel, took up a vantage point just outside the kill zone, ready to coordinate the attack. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours as they waited, the tension building with each passing second. Then, the first blips appeared on the scanner's alien vessels, drawn to the decoy like moths to a flame. One by one, they entered the trap, their formations tightening as they closed in on the false target. "Steady," Hale murmured, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. "Wait for it." The alien fleet was almost fully committed now, their ships clustering around the decoy, their attention locked on the illusion. Hale's hand hovered over the command console, her finger poised to initiate the ambush. The moment stretched, the weight of it pressing down on her like a physical force. Then, with a sharp exhale, she gave the order. The human fleet emerged from their hiding places like shadows given form, their weapons blazing as they unleashed a coordinated assault. The aliens, caught off guard, scrambled to respond, but the trap had already closed around them. Explosions lit up the void as human ships struck with surgical precision, their attacks focused and relentless. For a brief, shining moment, it seemed like the tide might turn, but Hale knew better than to let herself hope. The aliens were too numerous, too adaptable. Even now, their ships were regrouping, their formations shifting to counter the ambush. The battle was far from over, and the cost of this gambit was still to be paid. Yet as she watched the chaos unfold, Hale allowed herself a small, grim smile. They had bought themselves time, precious, fleeting time, and in a war like this, time was the one resource they couldn't afford to waste. The battlefield erupted into chaos as the human fleet, confident in their strategy, suddenly found themselves ensnared in a trap far more cunning than they had anticipated. The aliens, seeming to predict every maneuver, had already positioned their forces to encircle the humans completely. What had begun as a calculated strike quickly turned into a desperate struggle for survival. Commander Reyes' voice crackled over the comms, sharp and urgent. "We've been outplayed, fall back now." But retreat was no simple matter. The alien ships, sleek and relentless, closed in from all sides, their weapons flaring with deadly precision. The humans, caught off guard, scrambled to regroup. Fighters darted through the void, weaving between streaks of plasma fire and debris. The aliens' coordination was flawless, their movements almost preternatural. It was as if they had anticipated every possible move the humans could make, turning their own tactics against them. Reyes clenched his fists, his mind racing. How had they been so thoroughly outmaneuvered? The aliens weren't just reacting. They were playing a game of strategy far beyond human comprehension. Losses mounted quickly. Ships that had moments ago been part of a cohesive formation now drifted lifelessly, their hulls fractured and burning. The once proud fleet was being picked apart, piece by piece. Reyes barked orders, trying to salvage what he could, but the situation was deteriorating faster than anyone could respond. "Hold the line," he shouted, though he knew the line was already crumbling. The aliens pressed their advantage, their relentless assault leaving no room for error. Amid the chaos, a chilling realization began to dawn on the human commanders. This wasn't just a battle, it was a demonstration. The aliens were showing their superiority, not just in firepower but in strategy. They had lured the humans into a false sense of security, allowing them to believe they had the upper hand, only to reveal the truth in one devastating stroke. Reyes' mind flashed back to the initial intelligence reports, the warnings about the aliens' advanced cognitive abilities. He had underestimated them, and now his fleet was paying the price. The retreat was chaotic, every ship fighting for its life as the alien forces tightened their grip. Reyes' own vessel took heavy fire, the shields flickering dangerously low. Around him, the bridge crew worked frantically, their faces pale but determined. "We need to buy time," Reyes muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Time to regroup, to rethink, to find a way out of this nightmare. But time was a luxury they no longer had. As the human fleet struggled to disengage, the aliens showed no signs of relenting. Their ships moved with an almost predatory grace, cutting off escape routes and picking off stragglers. The humans were being herded, forced into tighter and tighter formations until there was nowhere left to run. Reyes' jaw tightened as he watched the tactical display. They had walked right into this, blinded by their own confidence. Now, the only question was whether they could survive long enough to learn from their mistake. The battle raged on, but the outcome was becoming increasingly clear. The aliens had not just outplayed the humans, they had outthought them, and as the human fleet limped away, battered and broken, the weight of that realization settled heavily on Reyes' shoulders. This wasn't just a defeat, it was a warning. The aliens were not merely a threat to be overcome, they were a force to be understood, a challenge that would demand more than brute strength and courage. The final war was far from over, but the rules of engagement had just changed, and if humanity was to stand a chance, they would need to adapt or face annihilation. Dr. Y leaned over the holographic display, her fingers tracing the intricate web of energy conduits that powered the alien fleet. The room was silent, save for the hum of the hologram and the faint rustle of paper as her team sifted through endless data. For weeks, they had been analyzing every fragment of information they could gather, searching for a weakness, a crack in the enemy's seemingly impenetrable armor. And then, in a moment of clarity, she saw it: a pattern, a flaw so subtle it had been overlooked by everyone else. Her breath caught in her throat as she realized the implications. "Here," she said, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. She pointed to a cluster of conduits on the hologram. "These energy channels are interconnected, but they're also the single point of failure. If we can disrupt them, even for a moment, the entire system would cascade into failure. Their shields, their weapons, their propulsion, everything relies on this network. It's their Achilles heel." The room erupted into murmurs of disbelief and hope. One of her colleagues, a young engineer named Javier, stepped closer, his brow furrowed. "But how do we even get close enough to target them? Their defenses are too strong. We've tried everything." Dr. Y's eyes gleamed with determination. "We don't need to get close. Their conduits are designed to handle massive energy loads, but they're also sensitive to interference. If we can generate a focused electromagnetic pulse at the right frequency, we can overload their system from a distance." "It won't be easy, but it's possible." The weight of her words hung in the air. This wasn't just a theory, it was a lifeline, a glimmer of hope in a war that had seemed all but lost. The alien fleet had been unstoppable, their technology so advanced that humanity's best efforts had barely scratched their defenses. But now, with this discovery, there was a chance, a slim, desperate chance, to turn the tide. As the team scrambled to refine the plan, Dr. Y found herself staring at the hologram once more. The conduits glowed faintly, a reminder of the fragility hidden within the enemy's might. She thought of the countless lives lost, the cities reduced to rubble, the unrelenting despair that had gripped humanity for so long. This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about reclaiming their future, about proving that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity could fight back. The call went out to the fleet commanders, and within hours, the plan was set in motion. Ships were retrofitted with the necessary equipment, pilots briefed on the mission's critical importance. The stakes were impossibly high. Failure would mean annihilation, but success could change everything. As the fleet prepared for what might be their final battle, Dr. Y stood at the heart of it all, her mind racing with calculations and contingencies. "Are you sure about this?" Javier asked, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and hope. Dr. Y nodded, her resolve unwavering. "It's our only shot. If we can hit them where it hurts, we can bring their fleet to its knees, but timing is everything. We have to strike with precision, or it won't work." The hours that followed were a blur of activity, every second ticking closer to the moment of truth. The alien fleet loomed on the horizon, their ships gleaming ominously against the void of space. But this time, humanity wasn't running or hiding. This time, they were ready to fight back. Dr. Y's discovery had given them a weapon, a way to strike at the heart of their enemy, and as the fleet moved into position, she whispered a silent prayer, hoping that it would be enough. The countdown began, and with it, the final, desperate strike that could decide the fate of humanity. The tension in the void of space was palpable as the human fleet surged forward, a symphony of engines roaring in unison. Ships of every class, fighters, cruisers, and destroyers moved in perfect coordination, a testament to the countless hours of training and the unyielding resolve of their crews. The alien armada loomed ahead, a dark, shimmering mass of advanced technology and incomprehensible design. But humanity had a plan, one born of desperation and ingenuity. They had studied their enemy, analyzed every skirmish, every battle, and now they targeted the aliens' weak points with surgical precision. At the heart of the fleet, aboard the flagship Erebus, Commander Hale gripped the edge of his console, his eyes locked on the holographic display of the battlefield. The aliens' command ships were their primary targets, massive vessels bristling with energy weapons and shielded by impenetrable defenses, or so they thought. Human engineers had discovered a flaw in their shielding, a brief but exploitable vulnerability that occurred during power surges. It was a window of opportunity, and Hale knew they couldn't afford to miss it. "All units prepare to engage on my mark." Hale's voice crackled over the fleet-wide comms, steady and commanding. "Target the command ship's power cores." "This is our chance to turn the tide." The response was immediate, a chorus of acknowledgments from every ship in the fleet. Fighters darted ahead, their sleek forms weaving through a storm of alien fire, while cruisers unleashed volleys of plasma torpedoes, their blinding trails lighting up the darkness. The aliens retaliated with devastating force, their energy beams slicing through human ships with terrifying ease. But humanity pressed on, their determination unshakable. Pilots maneuvered with skill and daring, dodging enemy fire while closing in on their targets. Engineers worked furiously to keep damaged systems online, their hands flying over control panels as alarms blared around them. Every second counted, every decision mattered, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. As the battle reached its peak, Hale's voice broke through the chaos once more. "For Earth, for humanity," he shouted, his words echoing across the fleet. It was more than a rallying cry. It was a reminder of what they were fighting for. Not just their own lives, but the survival of their species, their home, and everything they held dear. The words ignited a fire in the hearts of every soldier, every pilot, every crew member. They fought with renewed ferocity, their attacks growing more precise, more relentless. The aliens' command ships began to falter, their shields flickering as the human fleet exploited their weakness. One by one, the massive vessels erupted in blinding explosions, their cores overloaded and their systems failing. The tide of the battle was shifting, the aliens' once impenetrable formation crumbling under the relentless assault. But victory was far from assured. The aliens were relentless, their numbers seemingly endless, and the human fleet was taking heavy losses. Amid the chaos, Hale's mind raced. They had dealt a significant blow, but the fight wasn't over. The aliens would regroup, adapt, and strike back with even greater force. Humanity had to prepare for the next phase of the war, to anticipate their enemies' moves and stay one step ahead. As the Erebus surged forward, its weapons blazing, Hale couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. They had proven that the aliens were not invincible, that humanity could stand against the unknown and fight for their future. And as long as that hope remained, the battle, and the war was far from over, the battlefield fell silent, save for the distant hum of retreating alien ships. Their once imposing vessels now limped through the void, scarred and broken by the relentless human assault. Reyes stood on the bridge of the command ship, her voice trembling with a mix of triumph and exhaustion as she shouted, "We've done it." They're pulling back, the words echoed through the comm system, a rallying cry for the battered survivors. But as the cheers subsided, the weight of what had been lost began to settle over the fleet like a suffocating fog. Screens flickered with damage reports from across the Allied forces. Entire squadrons were gone, their names scrolling endlessly in memorial lists. Cities on Earth and the colonies lay in ruins, their populations scattered or worse. The human race had prevailed, but at a cost that defied comprehension. Reyes clenched her fists, her elation giving way to a hollow ache. Victory had come, but it felt less like triumph and more like survival by the thinnest of margins. On the ground, soldiers and civilians alike emerged from the wreckage, their faces streaked with soot and tears. Among them, a young engineer named Kyan sat on the edge of a shattered barricade, staring at the smoldering remains of an alien dropship. He had lost his entire unit in the final push, their sacrifice buying the precious seconds needed to disable the enemy's command hub. "We won," he muttered to no one in particular, his voice devoid of joy. But what did it cost us? In the skies above, Captain Alvarez guided his crippled fighter back to the carrier. His wingman, Lieutenant Vega, hadn't made it. Alvarez's hands shook as he landed, his mind replaying the moment Vega's ship had exploded in a burst of light. "We did what we had to do," he whispered, trying to convince himself. But the emptiness in his chest told a different story. Back on the command ship, Reyes reviewed the casualty reports. The numbers were staggering, millions of lives lost. Entire fleets reduced to scrap. The Earth's surface bore scars that would take generations to heal. She turned to her second-in-command, Commander Hale, who stood silently beside her. "Was it worth it?" Reyes asked, her voice barely audible. Hale hesitated, then placed a hand on her shoulder. "We're still here," he said simply. "That has to mean something." But the question lingered, unspoken yet omnipresent. As the fleet regrouped and began the long journey home, the aliens had retreated, their threat for now neutralized. Yet the victory felt incomplete, a hollow echo of what they had hoped to achieve. The cost of survival had been steep, and the scars it left behind would shape humanity's future in ways no one could yet foresee. As the sun rose over the battered Earth, Reyes stepped onto the observation deck, gazing at the planet she had fought so hard to protect. Somewhere in the distance, a flock of birds took flight, their wings catching the light. It was a small, fragile reminder of the world they had saved, but as Reyes watched, a single thought consumed her. What kind of world would it be now, after all they had lost? The battle was over, but the war within had only just begun. As the remnants of the alien fleet shimmered and dissolved into the infinite darkness of space, a haunting message echoed across the battle-scarred channels of Earth's communication networks. The alien leader's voice, cold and resonant, carried a weight that seemed to press against the very fabric of humanity's resolve. "You have proven resilient," it declared, each word measured, each syllable sharpened like a blade. "But this war is far from over. We will return." The message hung in the air, a chilling reminder that victory, if it could even be called that, was fleeting. The alien fleet had vanished, but their presence lingered like a shadow, a promise of something more sinister yet to come. Humanity had fought with everything it had, every ounce of ingenuity, every spark of courage, every fragment of unity, but this was not an end. It was a pause, a breath before the next storm. Across the globe, reactions were mixed. In the command centers, generals and scientists exchanged uneasy glances. They had anticipated a retreat, perhaps even a surrender, but not this. The aliens had not been defeated, they had chosen to withdraw. Why? What were they planning? The questions spiraled, unanswered, feeding a growing unease. Meanwhile, in the streets, people erupted into cheers, their relief palpable. For them, the immediate threat was gone. The skies were clear, the cities quiet, but for those who had seen the cost of the war firsthand, the destruction, the loss, the sheer scale of the alien technology, there was no celebration. Only a deep, gnawing dread. The alien leader's words were not just a threat, they were a revelation. They revealed a truth that many had suspected but few had dared to voice. Humanity was not the hunter in this conflict. It was the prey. The aliens had come not to conquer but to test, and now, having seen humanity's strength, they would return better prepared, more formidable, and utterly relentless. In the days that followed, the remnants of Earth's defenses were mobilized. The shattered fleets were rebuilt, the broken cities fortified. Scientists pored over the wreckage of alien ships, searching for clues, for weaknesses, for anything that might give humanity an edge when, not if the enemy returned. But the most pressing question remained unanswered. What did the aliens truly want? Was it resources, territory, or something far more incomprehensible? The answer, like the alien fleet, was shrouded in mystery. Amid the uncertainty, one thing became clear: humanity could not afford to rest. The war had changed everything. It had shattered old alliances and forged new ones, pushed technology to its limits, and forced humanity to confront its own fragility. And yet, it had also revealed a resilience, a capacity for unity and innovation that no one could have predicted. The aliens had underestimated humanity once. They would not make the same mistake again. As the stars twinkled coldly in the void, Earth stood at a crossroads. The alien leader's message was not just a warning, it was a challenge to grow stronger, to prepare, to fight not just for survival, but for the very essence of what it meant to be human. The war was far from over, and humanity, battered but unbroken, would be ready. The war had ended, but its echoes lingered in every corner of the galaxy. Humanity, battered and bruised, began the slow, arduous process of rebuilding once more. Cities that once gleamed under the light of distant stars now lay in ruins, their skeletal remains a stark reminder of the cost of survival. The survivors moved through the debris with hollow eyes, their hands trembling as they picked through the remnants of what once was. Among them stood Hale, a figure who had seen too much, lost too much. His voice, heavy with the weight of countless battles, broke the silence. "We've survived," he said, his words carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken regrets. But at what cost? How many more battles can we endure? The question hung in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and unrelenting. For Hale, survival was no longer a triumph, it was a burden. Each victory had come at a price, paid in lives, in dreams, in the very fabric of humanity's soul. The scars of war ran deep, etched not just into the landscape, but into the hearts of those who remained. Families had been torn apart, alliances shattered, and trust eroded. The survivors carried these wounds with them, their steps faltering as they tried to piece together a future from the fragments of the past. Yet, even in the shadow of so much loss, there was a flicker of hope. The stars, distant and cold, still called to them. For centuries, humanity had looked to the heavens with a mix of wonder and ambition, driven by the belief that something greater lay beyond the horizon. Now that gaze was tinged with fear. The unknown, once a source of endless possibility, had become a harbinger of danger. The stars were no longer just a destination, they were a reminder of what could be waiting for them out there. Hale stood at the edge of a makeshift settlement, his eyes fixed on the night sky. The survivors around him worked tirelessly, their hands calloused and raw as they rebuilt what they could. But Hale's mind was elsewhere, lost in the vast expanse above. The stars were supposed to be our salvation, he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. But now, every time I look up, I can't help but wonder if we're just inviting more destruction. His words resonated with those around him, a quiet acknowledgement of the duality that now defined their existence. Hope and fear, intertwined like the strands of a double helix, shaped their every decision. They knew they had to move forward, to rebuild and reclaim what had been lost. But the fear of what lay ahead was a constant companion, whispering doubts in the back of their minds. Could they truly endure another conflict, or would the next battle be the one that finally broke them? The survivors turned their eyes to the stars, not with the unbridled optimism of their ancestors, but with a cautious determination. They had learned the hard way that the universe was not a kind place. It was vast, unpredictable, and often hostile, but it was also their only path forward. The resources of their ravaged world were dwindling, and the stars offered the promise of new beginnings, or at least a chance to survive a little longer. Hale's reflection lingered in the air, a sobering reminder of the fragility of their existence. "We've survived," he repeated, his voice softer now, "but survival isn't enough. Not anymore. We need to find a way to thrive, to build something that won't crumble at the first sign of danger. Otherwise, what's the point?" The question was one they all grappled with, each in their own way. For some, the answer lay in unity, in coming together to create a stronger, more resilient society. For others, it was about exploration, about venturing into the unknown in search of answers, or at the very least, a place where they could finally catch their breath. And then there were those who simply wanted to live, to find a moment of peace in a galaxy that seemed intent on denying it to them. As the survivors worked, their movements slow but deliberate, Hale's gaze never left the stars. He knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, with dangers they couldn't even begin to imagine. But for the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to hope. Not the naive hope of his youth, but a tempered, hard-earned hope born from the ashes of countless losses. They had survived, and as long as they kept moving forward, as long as they refused to let fear dictate their path, there was a chance they could build something worth fighting for. Above them, the stars burned on, indifferent to the struggles of those below. But for humanity, those distant lights were more than just celestial bodies. They were a symbol of resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there was always a way forward. The scars of war would never fully heal, but perhaps, just perhaps, they could become the foundation for something stronger, something that would endure. As the dust of the final war settled and the scars of battle began to heal, a new generation of leaders rose from the ashes of the old world. These were not the politicians or bureaucrats of the past, bound by endless debates and self-interest. No, this was a generation forged in the crucible of survival, shaped by the shared trauma of humanity's brush with extinction. Among them stood Commander Reyes, a figure whose charisma and unyielding resolve had already become the stuff of legend. It was Reyes who stood before the fractured remnants of humanity and delivered a speech that would echo through the ages. "We must stand together," he declared, his voice carrying the weight of countless sacrifices, or will fall divided. These words were more than a rallying cry. They were a call to action, a blueprint for survival in a universe that had proven itself both vast and unforgiving. Reyes understood that the war they had just survived was not an end but a warning. The forces they had faced, those enigmatic, otherworldly entities, were not gone. They had retreated, but their shadow lingered, a constant reminder that humanity's survival hinged on unity. This is not just about rebuilding what we lost, Reyes continued, addressing the assembled leaders, scientists, and soldiers. This is about building something stronger, something capable of withstanding whatever comes next. And so, the rebuilding efforts began, not as a series of isolated projects, but as a coordinated, global endeavor. For the first time in centuries, the nations of Earth set aside their differences, pooling resources, knowledge, and manpower. The scars of the war were everywhere, cities reduced to rubble, landscapes scorched by weapons of unimaginable power, and entire populations displaced. But even in the face of such devastation, there was a sense of purpose, a collective determination to rise from the ashes. One of the most ambitious projects was the construction of the Unity Arcs, massive, self-sustaining habitats designed to serve as both shelters and centers of innovation. These arcs were not just physical structures, they were symbols of humanity's resilience. Built deep underground and in orbit, they were equipped with advanced technology, capable of withstanding everything from natural disasters to alien invasions. Each arc was a microcosm of the New World Order, a place where scientists, engineers, and thinkers from every corner of the globe worked side by side, united by a common goal. Reyes and the other leaders knew that rebuilding the physical world was only part of the challenge. Just as important was healing the psychological wounds left by the war. Communities that had once been divided by borders, ideologies, and histories now found themselves bound together by shared loss and shared hope. Memorials were erected not just to honor the fallen, but to remind the living of the cost of division. "We cannot afford to forget," Reyes said at the dedication of one such memorial. "Every life lost, every city destroyed, every moment of fear, these are not just memories. They are lessons, and we must learn them well." But unity, as Reyes often reminded those around him, was not something that could be achieved overnight. It required constant effort, a willingness to listen, to compromise, and to trust. There were moments of tension, of course, old rivalries and prejudices that threatened to resurface. Yet each time, the memory of the war and the specter of future threats served as a powerful deterrent. "We have seen what happens when we turn on each other," Reyes would say. "Let us now show what we can achieve when we stand as one." As the months turned into years, the fruits of this newfound unity became increasingly evident. Advances in technology, born out of collaboration rather than competition, began to reshape the world. Renewable energy sources replaced the depleted reserves of the past. Medical breakthroughs eradicated diseases that had plagued humanity for generations. And perhaps most importantly, the lessons of the war were woven into the fabric of society, ensuring that future generations would grow up with a deep understanding of the value of cooperation. Yet, even as humanity rebuilt, the shadow of the unknown loomed large. The leaders of this new era knew that their work was far from over. The Unity Arcs were not just refuges, they were launching pads for a future that extended beyond Earth. Reyes and his peers began to look to the stars, not with fear but with determination. "We have survived the worst the universe could throw at us," Reyes said in one of his final public addresses. "Now we must prepare for what comes next." Together, we will not only endure, we will thrive. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but for the first time in a long time, humanity faced them not as a collection of fractured nations, but as a single, unified force. And in that unity, there was hope. As humanity ventured deeper into the stars, the first signs of other civilizations began to emerge, not as thriving societies, but as haunting ruins scattered across distant worlds. These ancient remnants, etched with the scars of unimaginable battles, told a story far older and more tragic than anything Earth had ever known. Dr. Y, one of the leading scientists on the expedition, stood amidst the crumbling remains of a once great city on a planet light years from home. Her voice trembled with a mix of awe and dread as she spoke. "We're not alone in this fight, but these ruins, they're not just a sign of life, they're a warning we cannot afford to ignore." The discoveries were staggering. Massive structures, now crumbling and overgrown, bore the unmistakable marks of advanced technology. But alongside the remnants of their achievements were the traces of their downfall: charred battlefields, shattered defenses, and eerie symbols carved into the stone, as if the inhabitants had tried to leave a message for those who might come after. Dr. Y and her team deciphered fragments of these messages, piecing together the harrowing tale of a civilization that had faced the same alien threat humanity now confronted. They had fought bravely, but in the end they had fallen. Their cities were reduced to rubble, their people wiped out, and their world left silent. What struck the team most was the chilling similarity between the alien technology found in these ruins and the fragments recovered from Earth's own encounters. The same sleek, almost organic designs, the same relentless, adaptive strategies. It was as if the same enemy had been moving through the galaxy for millennia, extinguishing one civilization after another. "They've done this before," Dr. Y said, her voice low, "and they've perfected it. They know how to break us, how to exploit our weaknesses. But now, for the first time, we have a chance to learn from those who came before us. We can see where they went wrong, and maybe, just maybe, we can avoid making the same mistakes." The ruins offered more than just warnings, they held secrets. Among the debris, the team discovered fragments of technology that hinted at how these ancient civilizations had tried to fight back, energy shields that could withstand unimaginable force, weapons that harnessed the power of stars, even glimpses of strategies that had briefly turned the tide of battle. But it was clear that these innovations had come too late. The civilizations had been fractured, divided, and unable to unite against the common threat. Dr. Y saw the parallel to Earth's own struggles. "Unity is our greatest weapon," she said. "But it's also our greatest challenge. If we let fear and division tear us apart, we'll end up like them, broken, forgotten." As humanity began to explore the galaxy more extensively, the ruins became a grim map of the alien threat's path. Each desolate world told the same story: a civilization rising, thriving, and then falling to the same relentless enemy. But amidst the devastation, there was hope. The discoveries on these worlds gave humanity something it had never had before: knowledge of the enemy's tactics, knowledge of their weaknesses, and knowledge of what it would take to survive. "This isn't just our fight anymore," Dr. Y said. "It's the fight of every civilization that's ever faced this enemy. And if we can learn from their courage, their failures, and their sacrifices, maybe we can write a different ending." The exploration of the galaxy became more than a mission for survival, it became a quest for understanding. Each ruin was a lesson, each artifact a clue, and as humanity pieced together the fragments of these lost civilizations, they began to see a path forward. A path that would require not just technological innovation, but unity, resilience, and an unshakable will to endure. The stars, once a symbol of wonder and possibility, had become a battlefield. But they were also a reminder of what was at stake and of the legacy humanity would leave behind. The fight was far from over, and the ruins were there to remind them, to survive, they would have to be better. Better than the enemy, better than those who had come before, better, perhaps, than they had ever been. The tension aboard the Elysium was palpable, a quiet hum of anticipation that seemed to reverberate through the ship's metallic corridors. The crew had spent weeks on edge, their focus sharpened by the relentless threat of the unknown, but now, something unexpected had pierced the monotony of their defensive maneuvers, a signal. Not the chaotic, indecipherable static they'd come to expect from the unknown, but a deliberate, rhythmic pattern emanating from a distant star system. It was faint, almost imperceptible, yet unmistakably artificial. Commander Hale's eyes narrowed as she studied the data streaming across the holographic display. "This isn't random," she murmured, her voice cutting through the silence of the command deck. "It's structured, purposeful, the signal repeated at precise intervals, a sequence of pulses that defied natural explanation." It was as if someone, or something, was reaching out. The implications were staggering. If this signal was indeed sent by an intelligent civilization, it could mean the difference between survival and annihilation. The unknown had proven to be an enemy of unimaginable power, one that seemed to thrive on chaos and destruction. But this signal, this was different. It carried a sense of order, of intention. Could it be a potential ally? Hale straightened, her decision immediate and resolute. "Prepare a mission," she ordered, her tone leaving no room for debate. "We need all the help we can get." Her words sparked a flurry of activity across the ship. Engineers recalibrated the thrusters, scientists analyzed the signal's origin, and the expedition team began assembling their gear. Every second counted. The star system in question lay on the fringes of explored space, a region shrouded in mystery. Scans revealed a single habitable planet orbiting a dim, aging star. The signal originated from there, its source buried beneath layers of dense atmosphere and swirling storms. The expedition team would need to navigate treacherous conditions, but the potential reward outweighed the risks. If this civilization had the technology to send such a signal, they might also possess the means to fight the unknown. As the Elysium's shuttle prepared for launch, Hale addressed the team. "This isn't just a reconnaissance mission," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "It's a lifeline. Whatever, or whoever, is down there, they could be the key to turning the tide. But tread carefully, we don't know what we're walking into." The shuttle detached from the Elysium with a soft hiss, its engines flaring as it descended toward the planet's surface. The journey was tense, the crew acutely aware of the stakes. Below them, the planet's atmosphere churned with violent storms, their lightning illuminating the clouds like a strobe. The shuttle's sensors struggled to penetrate the chaos, but the signal grew stronger with every passing moment. When they finally broke through the cloud cover, the landscape that greeted them was both alien and eerily familiar. Towering spires of crystalline rock jutted from the ground, their surfaces reflecting the dim light of the star above. Strange, bioluminescent plants pulsed with faint light, casting an otherworldly glow across the terrain. And in the distance, nestled among the spires, was the source of the signal, a massive structure, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shimmer as though alive. The team landed cautiously, their footsteps echoing in the alien stillness. As they approached the structure, A low hum filled the air, growing louder with each step. The patterns on the structure's surface began to shift, forming shapes that resembled language or perhaps a map. It was as if the structure was responding to their presence, awakening from a long slumber. For a moment, the team stood in awe, the weight of the moment pressing down on them. This was no mere coincidence. Someone or something had been waiting. And now, humanity's fate might hinge on what they found within those ancient walls. The air inside the alien vessel was cool, almost electric, as the human expedition team stepped cautiously across the shimmering metallic floor. The walls seemed to pulse faintly, alive with a kind of energy that defied human understanding. Before them stood the leader of the alien species, towering and ethereal, their form shifting subtly as if composed of light and shadow intertwined. Their voice resonated not through sound, but directly into the minds of the humans, calm yet commanding. "We have watched your struggles," they said, each word carrying the weight of centuries. "Perhaps it is time to join forces." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. The humans exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of awe, disbelief, and cautious hope. This was no ordinary encounter. The technology around them was beyond anything humanity had ever conceived: self-repairing materials, energy sources that seemed infinite, and devices that bent the very fabric of space and time. It was clear that this species had mastered the cosmos in ways humanity could only dream of, and yet they were here, offering not conquest, but collaboration. The leader stepped forward, their presence both intimidating and strangely comforting. "You have fought valiantly against the darkness that encroaches upon your world," they continued. "But alone, you cannot hope to prevail. Together, we might forge a future where both our species thrive." The words struck a chord deep within the humans. They had come to this distant corner of the galaxy seeking answers, perhaps even salvation. But this was beyond anything they had imagined. Captain Elena Reyes, the leader of the expedition, stepped forward, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. "You speak of joining forces," she began, her words measured. "But what would such an alliance entail? What do you ask of us in return?" The alien leader tilted their head slightly, a gesture that felt almost human, yet entirely otherworldly. "We ask for nothing but your willingness to learn, to grow, and to stand beside us against the greater threats that loom beyond the stars," they replied. "Your ingenuity, your resilience, these are traits we value. Together, we can achieve what neither of us could alone." The humans began to murmur among themselves, weighing the implications of such an alliance. For centuries, humanity had fought to survive, to push back against the unknown dangers that threatened their existence. But this was a chance to transcend their limitations, to step into a new era of understanding and cooperation. Yet it was not without risk. Trusting a species so far advanced, whose motives remained shrouded in mystery, was a leap of faith that demanded careful consideration. Elena turned to her team, her mind racing. "This could be our greatest opportunity," she said quietly, "or our greatest mistake, but one thing is clear: we cannot face what's coming alone." Her words resonated with the others, their expressions shifting from uncertainty to determination. They had come this far, endured so much. Turning back now was not an option. As the humans deliberated, the alien leader watched patiently, their gaze piercing yet devoid of judgment. They seemed to understand the weight of the decision before them, the delicate balance between hope and fear. "Time is a resource we must use wisely," they said finally. "The forces that threaten your world grow stronger with each passing moment. The choice is yours, but know this: We stand ready to walk this path with you, should you choose to take it." The room fell silent once more as the humans exchanged glances, their resolve hardening. This was no longer just about survival. It was about the future of their species, of their world, and perhaps of the galaxy itself. And as they stood there, surrounded by the impossible wonders of an alien civilization, they knew one thing for certain: the next step they took would change everything. The alliance between humanity and the enigmatic species they once feared was at last a reality. After decades of conflict and mistrust, the two sides stood on the precipice of a new era, one built on the fragile foundation of shared survival. But as the leaders of both species gathered to formalize their partnership, a palpable tension lingered in the air. General Reyes, weathered by years of war and betrayal, stood at the center of the negotiations, his voice a low rumble of caution. "We can't trust them completely," he warned, his eyes scanning the room. "We've been betrayed before, one misstep, and this could all unravel." The warning wasn't unfounded. Humanity's history was riddled with broken alliances and shattered promises, and the scars of those betrayals ran deep. The alien species, for their part, seemed to carry their own burdens of suspicion. Their emissaries spoke in measured tones, their gestures deliberate, as if every word and movement were carefully calculated. Yet, despite the unease, the alliance moved forward. It had to. The threat looming beyond their borders, a force neither species could face alone, demanded unity. No matter how uneasy, the first steps of collaboration were cautious, almost tentative. Scientists from both sides began exchanging knowledge, their interactions marked by a mix of curiosity and wariness. Human engineers marveled at the alien technology, sleek and organic in design, while the aliens studied humanity's ingenuity, their ability to adapt and innovate under the harshest conditions. Resources were pooled, though the process was far from seamless. Disputes erupted over allocation, with each side accusing the other of hoarding or overreach. Reyes often found himself mediating these conflicts, his presence a stabilizing force in the midst of rising tempers. One particularly heated exchange occurred over the distribution of energy crystals, a rare and potent resource the aliens had brought to the table. "These crystals could power our fleet for months," argued a human delegate, "but if we give them too many, what's to stop them from turning those very ships against us?" The alien representative countered with equal fervor, their translator device emitting a sharp, almost mechanical tone. "Our survival depends on mutual trust. Without it, this alliance is doomed before it begins." Reyes stepped in, his voice cutting through the tension. "We're walking a tightrope here, one wrong move and we all fall. But if we let fear dictate our actions, we've already lost." His words carried weight, a reminder of the stakes they faced. Slowly, grudgingly, agreements were reached, compromises forged in the heat of necessity. Yet, beneath the surface, the distrust simmered. Whispers of espionage and sabotage began to circulate, each side accusing the other of ulterior motives. Reyes found himself increasingly isolated, caught between his duty to protect humanity and his growing belief that the alliance was their only hope. "We can't let the past dictate our future," he confided to a trusted advisor. "But we can't ignore it either. Every step we take has to be measured, calculated." The tension wasn't limited to the leadership. Among the rank and file, the blending of cultures sparked both fascination and friction. Human soldiers and alien warriors trained side by side, their vastly different combat styles clashing as often as they complemented one another. Misunderstandings were common, fueled by language barriers and cultural differences. Yet in those moments of friction, glimmers of camaraderie began to emerge. A human medic saving an alien soldier's life, an alien engineer repairing a human ship. These small acts of cooperation became the fragile threads binding the Alliance together. As the days turned into weeks, the Alliance slowly, painfully, began to take shape. Knowledge flowed more freely, resources were shared more equitably, and the initial distrust began to give way to a cautious optimism. But Reyes' warning echoed in the minds of all who had heard it. Trust, once broken, was not easily rebuilt. The Alliance was a fragile thing, a delicate balance of hope and fear, forged in the shadow of an unimaginable threat. And as the two species moved forward, they did so with the unspoken understanding that their survival depended not just on their ability to fight together, but on their willingness to trust, truly trust one another. The tension was palpable as the combined fleet assembled in the void of space, their sleek, battle-hardened ships glinting under the light of distant stars. This was no ordinary gathering. It was the culmination of years of preparation, sacrifice, and innovation. The aliens, those enigmatic and relentless invaders, had retreated once before, but their return was inevitable. And this time, humanity would not be caught off guard. Admiral Hale stood on the bridge of the flagship, her gaze steady as she surveyed the fleet through the panoramic viewport. Hundreds of vessels, each bristling with advanced weaponry, formed a formidable armada. The scars of past battles were etched into their hulls, but so too were the upgrades: experimental energy cannons, adaptive shielding systems, and AI-driven targeting arrays. Every ship was a testament to human resilience and ingenuity. Hale's voice cut through the silence, firm and unyielding. "This time we'll be ready, this time we'll win." Her words carried the weight of a promise, one that every crew member held close as the final battle loomed. The aliens' tactics were no longer a mystery. Their swift, brutal strikes had once left humanity reeling, but now the fleet had adapted. Scouting drones patrolled the edges of known space, feeding real-time data to the command center. Engineers had reverse-engineered fragments of alien technology, integrating their findings into human designs. The result was a fleet that was faster, stronger, and smarter than ever before. Yet, for all their advancements, the stakes remained impossibly high. This was not just a battle for survival, it was a fight for the very soul of humanity. On board the Eclipse, a state-of-the-art cruiser, Captain Reyes briefed his crew. "We've trained for this," he said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "Every simulation, every drill, every sleepless night, it's all led us here. Stick to the plan, trust your training, and remember, we fight not just for ourselves, but for every life back home." The crew nodded, their resolve unwavering. Across the fleet, similar scenes played out as commanders rallied their teams, each word a thread in the tapestry of unity that bound them together. The aliens' approach was detected hours before they emerged from the warp. Sensors picked up the telltale distortions, and the fleet sprang into action. Ships moved into formation, their movements precise and coordinated. The Dauntless, a heavy cruiser retrofitted with experimental plasma lances, took the lead, its massive hull casting a shadow over the smaller vessels. Behind it, the Aegis deployed its energy shields, creating a protective barrier for the fleet. Every action was calculated, every decision deliberate. There was no room for error. As the alien armada materialized on the horizon, a wave of unease swept through the fleet. Their ships were unlike anything humanity had ever faced, organic in design, almost alive, with pulsating lights and shifting forms. But fear had no place here. Hale's voice boomed across the comms, steady and commanding. "Hold formation, wait for my signal." The fleet held its ground, a silent predator poised to strike. The first salvo came from the aliens, a barrage of energy pulses that lit up the void. The Aegis absorbed the impact, its shields flickering but holding firm. Then Hale gave the order, "All ships engage." The fleet erupted into action, their weapons blazing as they unleashed a coordinated assault. The Dauntless fired its plasma lances, their searing beams cutting through the alien vessels like a hot knife through butter. Smaller ships darted between the larger ones, their agility allowing them to deliver precise strikes on vulnerable targets, but the aliens were far from defenseless. Their ships moved with uncanny speed, their organic hulls regenerating damage almost as quickly as it was inflicted. The battle raged on, a chaotic dance of light and destruction. Every second felt like an eternity, every decision a matter of life and death. Yet amidst the chaos, there was a strange sense of clarity. This was the moment they had prepared for, the moment that would define their future. As the battle intensified, Hale's voice returned to the comms, this time softer but no less resolute. "Remember why we're here, remember what we're fighting for. This is our chance to prove that humanity is more than just survival. We are hope, we are courage, we are the future. Now, let's finish this." Her words echoed through the fleet, a rallying cry that ignited a fire in every heart. The final battle had begun, and humanity was ready to face it head-on. The stillness of space was shattered as the alien armada emerged from the void, their ships materializing like shadows given form. This time, their numbers were staggering, an overwhelming tide of dark, angular vessels that blotted out the stars. The Allied fleet, a fragile coalition of humanity's last defenders, stood ready, their ships bristling with weapons powered by desperation and hope. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and the silence before the storm was deafening. The first shots were fired almost simultaneously, streaks of energy cutting through the darkness. The Allied fleet's fighters darted like fireflies, weaving through the chaos, while the larger capital ships unleashed barrages of plasma and railgun fire. Explosions rippled across the battlefield, each one a brief, blinding flash of destruction. The alien ships, sleek and menacing, moved with uncanny precision, their tactics cold and calculated. It was clear they had learned from their previous encounters, adapting to humanity's strategies with terrifying efficiency. Amid the chaos, Captain Elena Reyes of the battlecruiser Erebus barked orders, her voice steady despite the storm raging around her. The Erebus was one of the fleet's most advanced ships, its hull reinforced with experimental alloys and its weapon systems pushed to their limits. Reyes knew their role was critical. They had to hold the line, no matter the cost. "Focus fire on their command ship," she commanded, her eyes locked on the massive alien vessel looming in the distance. "If we can take that down, we might stand a chance." But the alien armada was relentless. Waves of smaller ships surged forward, their movements synchronized as if controlled by a single mind. The Allied fleet's fighters struggled to keep up, their pilots pushing their machines to the brink. Lieutenant Marcus Kane, one of the fleet's top aces, clenched his teeth as he maneuvered his fighter through a deadly dance of lasers and debris. "They're everywhere," he muttered, his hands gripping the controls. "We can't let them break through." As the battle raged, it became clear that the aliens had brought something new to the fight, a weapon unlike anything humanity had ever seen. From the heart of their fleet, a massive beam of energy erupted, cutting through the Allied ships like a knife through paper. The Erebus shuddered as the beam grazed its hull, the impact sending sparks and smoke flooding through the corridors. Reyes gripped the console, her mind racing. "Damage report," she shouted. "We need to regroup now." But regrouping was easier said than done. The alien armada pressed their advantage, their ships closing in from all sides. The Allied fleet's communications were jammed, their formations shattered. Desperation began to creep in, but Reyes refused to let it take hold. "We're not done yet," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We fight for Earth, we fight for each other, we don't stop until they're gone." In the midst of the carnage, a glimmer of hope emerged. The Erebus's chief engineer, Dr. Amara Patel, had been working on a last-ditch plan, a modified EMP pulse designed to disrupt the alien ship's systems. "If we can get close enough," she explained, her voice tinged with urgency, "we might be able to disable their fleet long enough to turn the tide." Reyes nodded, her resolve hardening. "Then that's what we'll do, prepare the pulse. We'll take the Erebus straight into the heart of their fleet." The crew exchanged grim looks, but no one protested. They knew the stakes, they knew what failure would mean. As the Erebus surged forward, the alien armada turned their attention to the lone ship daring to challenge them. Lasers and missiles streaked through the void, but the Erebus pressed on, its shields flickering under the onslaught. Reyes clenched her fists, her eyes fixed on the alien command ship. "Almost there," she whispered. "Just a little further." The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and in that moment, the crew of the Erebus knew they were more than just soldiers. They were the last hope of a species fighting for survival, and as the alien armada closed in, one thing became clear: this battle would not be the end. It was a fight for the future, a fight for the stars, and humanity would not go quietly into the night. The battlefield was a maelstrom of chaos, a swirling storm of fire, smoke, and deafening explosions that seemed to stretch endlessly in every direction. The once pristine alien landscape was now a scarred wasteland, littered with the remnants of shattered weapons and the fallen from both sides. The air was thick with the acrid smell of burning metal and the cries of the wounded, a grim reminder of the cost of this war. Reyes gripped his rifle tightly, his knuckles white, as he surveyed the carnage around him. His heart pounded in his chest, not just from the physical exertion, but from the crushing weight of responsibility. They were running out of time. Reyes to command, "Do you copy?" He barked into the radio, his voice strained but urgent. Static crackled in response, and for a moment he feared the worst, that they were truly alone out here. Then a faint voice broke through the noise. "Command here, what's your status, Reyes?" The reply was terse, but it was enough to give him a sliver of hope. "We can't hold them off much longer," Reyes shouted over the din of battle, his voice cracking under the pressure. "They're closing in on all sides. We're down to our last reserves of ammo, and half the squad is either injured or worse. If we don't get reinforcements or some kind of divine intervention, we're done for." He paused, glancing at the faces of his comrades nearby. They were exhausted, their expressions a mix of determination and despair. They all knew what was at stake. The enemy, an unrelenting force of unimaginable power, seemed to grow bolder with each passing moment. Their tactics were unlike anything humanity had ever faced: precision strikes from the shadows, waves of relentless drones, and a terrifying adaptability that made every counterattack feel futile. Reyes had seen enough battles to know when the tide was turning, and this one was slipping away fast. He ducked behind a crumbling barrier as a fresh volley of plasma fire erupted overhead, the heat searing the air around him. "We need a miracle," he muttered under his breath, more to himself than to anyone else. The words felt heavy, almost blasphemous, but they were the truth. They were outnumbered, outgunned and out of options. Nearby, one of his squad members, a young recruit named Alvarez, was frantically trying to patch up a wounded soldier. Blood stained her hands as she worked, her face pale but determined. "We're not going to make it, are we?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. Reyes didn't answer immediately. He couldn't bring himself to lie to her, but he also couldn't crush what little hope she had left. "Keep fighting," he said finally, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "We've been through worse, haven't we?" It was a stretch, and they both knew it, but sometimes even the smallest shred of optimism could keep you going. The radio crackled again, this time with a new voice. "Reyes, this is Captain Vega. Hold your position. Reinforcements are en route, but it's going to be close. You need to buy us more time." Reyes clenched his teeth, his mind racing. More time. They were barely holding on as it was, but he knew what had to be done. "Understood," he replied, his tone resolute. "We'll hold the line, just tell them to hurry." He turned to his squad, his voice rising above the chaos. "You heard the man. We're not backing down, not now. We hold until help arrives, or we go down swinging. Either way, we make them regret ever setting foot on our world." A chorus of shouts and cheers erupted from the group, their spirits momentarily lifted by his words. It wasn't much, but in the face of overwhelming odds, sometimes defiance was all you had. Reyes reloaded his weapon, his hands steady despite the exhaustion coursing through his body. He knew the odds were against them, but he also knew that miracles didn't come to those who gave up. As the enemy forces advanced once more, Reyes and his squad prepared for what could be their final stand. The ground shook beneath their feet, the sky darkened with smoke, and the air was thick with tension. But amidst the despair, there was a glimmer of something else, something unyielding. It wasn't hope, not exactly. It was the kind of resolve that could only come from knowing you were fighting for something greater than yourself. And so, with their backs against the wall and the weight of the world on their shoulders, they raised their weapons and faced the storm head-on. The battle was far from over, and the cost would be steep, but they were determined to make every second count. For humanity, for survival, for the chance to see another sunrise. Dr. Y stood at the center of the command hub, her presence commanding the room as the weight of her announcement settled over the gathered officers. The tension was palpable, a quiet hum of anticipation as she activated the holographic display. Floating in the air was a sleek, cylindrical device, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly glow. "This," she began, her voice steady but charged with urgency, "is what we've been working toward. A weapon designed not to destroy their ships, but to dismantle the very fabric of their unity." She paused, allowing the gravity of her words to sink in. The alien fleet operates as a single entity, a hive mind. Their strength lies in their ability to communicate and coordinate instantaneously, acting as one. But what if we could sever that connection? What if we could fracture their unity, turning their greatest strength into their greatest weakness? The room was silent, every eye fixed on her as she continued. "This device emits a targeted pulse, designed to disrupt the neural link that binds them. If we can isolate their ships, even for a moment, we can turn the tide of this war." Dr. Y's explanation was both technical and deeply human, her passion for the project evident in every word. She described the years of research, the countless failures, and the breakthroughs that had finally led to this moment. "The aliens' communication is unlike anything we've encountered. It's not just data, it's a living network, a shared consciousness, but every system has a vulnerability. And we've found theirs." As she spoke, the holographic display shifted, showing a simulation of the weapon in action. The pulse radiated outward, a wave of energy that spread through the alien fleet like a shockwave. Ships that had moved in perfect unison moments before now veered erratically, their coordination shattered. "This is our window," Dr. Y said, her voice firm. "If we deploy this weapon at the right moment, we can cripple their fleet, buying us the time we need to regroup and strike back." The room erupted into a flurry of activity as plans were set into motion. The weapon was loaded onto a specialized drone, its sleek design built for speed and precision. Dr. Y oversaw every detail, her sharp eyes missing nothing. As the drone launched into the void of space, the tension in the command hub reached a fever pitch. The holographic display tracked its progress, a single point of light moving steadily toward the alien fleet. Moments later, the pulse was activated. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The alien ships, once a coordinated swarm, now moved in disarray, their movements erratic and uncoordinated. For the first time since the war began, there was a glimmer of hope. Dr. Y watched the display with a mixture of relief and determination. "This is just the beginning," she said quietly, more to herself than anyone else. "We've dealt them a blow, but the war isn't over, not yet." The weapon's success was a testament to human ingenuity, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, there was always a way to fight back. Dr. Y's invention was more than a tool of war. It was a symbol of resilience, a beacon of hope in a conflict that had seemed all but lost. And as the human fleet prepared to capitalize on this newfound advantage, the tides of the war began to shift, one pulse at a time. The battlefield erupted into chaos as the weapon's activation sent shockwaves rippling through the alien fleet. The once imposing armada, a dark tide of ships that had seemed unstoppable, now reeled in disarray. Blinding arcs of energy crackled across the void, their jagged tendrils lashing out at the alien vessels, tearing through their shimmering hulls like paper. The weapon, a culmination of humanity's desperation and ingenuity, had done its job disrupting the enemy's cohesion and shattering their confidence. Hale's voice crackled over the comms, sharp and commanding. "Now's our chance. Push them back." The order carried the weight of 1,000 lives hanging in the balance, a rallying cry that ignited the Allied fleet. Ships that had been holding the line, battered but unbroken, surged forward as one. Their engines roared to life, trails of blue flame streaking across the black expanse as they closed the distance. The tide was turning, and every pilot, every gunner, every soldier aboard those ships knew it. This was their moment, their chance to strike back against the forces that had pushed humanity to the brink of extinction. The alien ranks, once a monolithic force of overwhelming power, now faltered. Their formations, once precise and unyielding, began to crumble. Ships collided in their haste to regroup, their sleek, otherworldly designs now symbols of vulnerability. The weapon's disruption had thrown them into disarray, severing their communication networks and crippling their coordination. For the first time, the enemy looked human. Flawed, frightened, and the Allied fleet was ready to exploit that weakness. From the bridge of the flagship, Hale watched the unfolding chaos with a mixture of relief and determination. His eyes darted across the holographic displays, tracking the movements of his fleet as they pressed the advantage. "Concentrate fire on their command ship," he ordered, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "Cut off the head, and the rest will fall." The fleet responded instantly, a coordinated barrage of energy beams and projectiles streaking toward the alien command vessel. The massive ship, a grotesque fusion of organic and mechanical design, shuddered under the assault, its shields flickering and failing, but the aliens weren't going down without a fight. Even in their disarray, they were dangerous. A squadron of alien fighters broke away from the main fleet, their sleek forms darting through the chaos with deadly precision. They targeted the Allied fleet's flanks, their weapons tearing through the hulls of human ships with terrifying efficiency. The battle was far from over, and every second counted. Hale clenched his fists, his mind racing. "Deploy the interceptors," he barked. "We can't let them regroup." The interceptors, nimble and fast, shot forward to engage the alien fighters. The dogfights that followed were a blur of motion, a deadly dance of light and shadow. Explosions lit up the void as ships on both sides were torn apart, their wreckage drifting aimlessly through the battlefield. But the Allied fleet held firm, their determination unshaken. As the battle raged on, a sense of hope began to spread through the fleet. For months, they had been on the defensive, fighting a losing war against an enemy that seemed invincible. But now, for the first time, they were gaining ground. The weapon had given them a fighting chance, and they were determined to make the most of it. Every ship, every fighter, every soldier was giving their all, their actions driven by a singular purpose: to push the enemy back and reclaim what had been lost. The alien command ship, now heavily damaged, began to retreat, its engines sputtering as it tried to disengage from the battle. Hale's lips curled into a grim smile. "Don't let them escape," he said, his voice cold and resolute. "We end this now." The fleet closed in, their weapons trained on the retreating vessel. The final barrage was a symphony of destruction, a blinding flash of light that consumed the alien ship and everything around it. When the light faded, the command ship was gone, reduced to nothing more than scattered debris. The battlefield fell silent, the remnants of the alien fleet scattering into the void. The Allied fleet had won the day, but the cost had been high. Ships lay in ruins, their crews lost to the cold embrace of space. Yet amidst the wreckage, there was a sense of triumph. The weapon had worked, the tide had turned, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, humanity had a reason to hope. The alien leader's voice crackled through the communication systems, a haunting resonance that seemed to echo far beyond the confines of the damaged ship. Their vessel, once a formidable force in the cosmos, now drifted lifelessly, its hull scorched and torn by the relentless assault of humanity's last stand. The alien leader stood alone on the command deck, their silhouette illuminated by the flickering emergency lights. The air was thick with tension, a silence broken only by the faint hum of failing systems. "You have won," the alien leader declared, their voice steady despite the dire circumstances. "But the galaxy will never be safe. The unknown will always find you." The words carried a weight that transcended the immediate moment, a prophecy wrapped in defeat. It was not a taunt, nor a plea for mercy, but a chilling reminder of the vast, unfathomable mysteries that lay beyond the stars. The alien leader's tone was not one of anger, but of resignation, a being who had seen too much, who understood the futility of struggle against forces far greater than any single civilization. As the transmission ended, a series of low, rhythmic beeps began to pulse through the ship. The crew of the human fleet watched in stunned silence as the alien vessel's core began to glow, a brilliant, blinding light that signaled the beginning of its self-destruction. The explosion that followed was not just a physical detonation, but a symbolic one. It marked the end of a battle, but also the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter fraught with uncertainty and the looming shadow of the unknown. The alien leader's final words lingered in the minds of those who heard them, a haunting refrain that refused to be silenced. The unknown will always find you. What did it mean? Was it a warning of other, more powerful entities lurking in the depths of space? Or was it a broader commentary on humanity's place in the universe, a reminder that no matter how far we venture, there will always be forces beyond our comprehension, challenges we cannot predict, and threats we cannot fully understand? For the human fleet, the victory was bittersweet. They had faced an enemy unlike any other, an adversary whose motives and origins remained shrouded in mystery. The alien leader's cryptic message suggested that this was not the end, but merely the first act in a much larger, more complex struggle. The galaxy, vast and infinite, held secrets that no amount of exploration or technological advancement could fully unravel. And now, with the alien leader gone, humanity was left to grapple with the implications of their final words. The crew members exchanged uneasy glances, their triumph tempered by an unshakable sense of foreboding. Some whispered theories about what the alien leader might have known, while others dismissed the message as the desperate ramblings of a defeated foe. Yet, deep down, they all felt it, the gnawing realization that the universe was far more dangerous and unpredictable than they had ever imagined. The alien leader's warning was not just a statement, it was a challenge, a call to vigilance in the face of an uncertain future. As the debris from the alien ship scattered across the void, the human fleet began the arduous task of regrouping and assessing their next steps. The battle was over, but the war, if it could even be called that, was far from finished. The alien leader's final act of defiance had left an indelible mark, a reminder that the cosmos was not a place to be conquered, but a realm to be navigated with humility and caution. And as the fleet's ships turned their sights toward the horizon, one question remained: what else was out there, waiting in the shadows, ready to emerge when humanity least expected it? The battlefield fell into an eerie stillness as the alien fleet began its retreat, their once formidable ships now scattered and disorganized, drifting aimlessly through the void. The remnants of their armada shimmered faintly in the distance, like dying embers against the dark canvas of space. On the command deck of the human flagship, Admiral Reyes stood silently, her hands resting on the console as she watched the enemy vanish into the horizon. A deep, weary sigh escaped her lips. "It's over," she murmured, her voice barely audible above the low hum of the ship's systems. "We've won," but the words felt hollow, almost foreign, as if they carried no weight compared to the gravity of what had been lost. Around her, the crew exchanged glances, their faces etched with exhaustion and grief. The victory had come at a cost too great to measure: lives sacrificed, worlds scarred, and a galaxy forever changed. Reyes turned away from the viewport, her eyes scanning the dimly lit room. The once bustling command center now felt hauntingly empty, the absence of fallen comrades a silent reminder of the price paid for survival. She moved to a nearby console, her fingers brushing over the names of the lost, each one a story cut short, a future stolen by the relentless tide of war. The silence was broken by the soft footsteps of Commander Tala, Reyes' second-in-command, who approached with a somber expression. "The reports are coming in," Tala said, her voice steady but tinged with sorrow. "Casualty numbers are staggering, entire battalions wiped out, colonies on the outer rim gone." She paused, her gaze dropping to the floor. "And the civilians? We'll never know how many didn't make it off-world." Reyes nodded slowly, her mind racing with the weight of the losses. She had led them through the darkest hours, but no amount of strategy or courage could erase the scars left behind. As the reality of their victory began to sink in, the crew's initial relief gave way to a profound sense of emptiness. The war had defined them for so long, shaping every decision, every moment of their lives. Now, with the enemy defeated, they were left to grapple with the aftermath, a shattered galaxy, and the daunting task of rebuilding what had been lost. Reyes knew that the fight for survival was far from over. The war might have ended, but the battle for hope, for meaning, was just beginning. She stepped forward, addressing the room with a quiet determination. "We've endured more than anyone should ever have to," she began, her voice gaining strength. "But we're still here, and as long as we are, we owe it to those we've lost to keep moving forward. To rebuild, to honor their sacrifice by making this galaxy a place worth fighting for." Her words resonated in the silence, a spark of resolve igniting in the hearts of those who heard them. The crew straightened, their grief tempered by a renewed sense of purpose. Outside the ship, the stars burned brightly, their light piercing through the darkness. The alien fleet was gone, but the scars of their invasion remained, a reminder of the fragility of existence and the resilience of those who had stood against the unknown. As Reyes turned back to the viewport, she felt the weight of the journey ahead, but also a glimmer of hope. The war had ended, but the story of humanity's survival was far from over. And in that moment, she vowed to lead them not just to victory, but to a future where the cost of their triumph would not be in vain. The war had ended, but the scars it left behind were etched into the very fabric of the galaxy. Humanity and its allies stood amidst the ruins, their spirits bruised but unbroken. The once divided factions, now united by a shared struggle, began the arduous task of rebuilding. Cities that had crumbled under the weight of conflict slowly rose again, their foundations reinforced not just by steel and stone, but by the unyielding resolve of those who had fought to preserve them. The bond between species, forged in the crucible of war, had grown stronger than ever. It was a bond born of sacrifice, of trust earned through shared loss and triumph. Hale, standing on the observation deck of the newly reconstructed flagship, gazed out at the stars. The vastness of space stretched endlessly before him, a reminder of how much still lay beyond their understanding. His voice, steady yet tinged with the weight of reflection, broke the silence. "We've faced the unknown and survived, but the galaxy is vast, and our journey is just beginning." Those words, simple yet profound, carried the weight of a truth that resonated with everyone who had fought alongside him. Survival was not the end. It was the first step into a future brimming with both possibility and uncertainty. The rebuilding effort was more than just physical reconstruction. It was a collective endeavor to heal, to learn, and to grow. Across the allied worlds, communities came together to share resources, knowledge, and hope. Engineers from Earth worked alongside scientists from the Planetary, their combined ingenuity producing technologies that pushed the boundaries of what they had once thought possible. Farmers from the agrarian colonies of Proxima Centauri collaborated with the artisans of the Zephyrian moons, ensuring that no world went hungry or without the means to rebuild. This unity was not forced. It was a natural extension of the trust that had been earned on the battlefield. Yet, even as they rebuilt, there was an undercurrent of awareness. The galaxy, vast and uncharted, still held mysteries that could not be ignored. Hale often found himself pondering the questions that lingered in the aftermath of their victory. What other threats lay hidden among the stars? Were there civilizations out there, watching and waiting? Or perhaps were there allies they had yet to meet, their paths yet to cross? These thoughts were not born of fear, but of curiosity and a sense of responsibility. They had survived once, but survival without growth was meaningless. In the weeks that followed, Hale and his closest advisors began laying the groundwork for what they called the Galactic Accord, a pact that would formalize the alliance and establish a framework for exploration, discovery, and mutual defense. It was not just a treaty, it was a promise to the future. The Accord emphasized the importance of cooperation, of learning from one another, and of facing the unknown not as individual species, but as a united front. It was a bold vision, one that required trust and a willingness to embrace the unfamiliar. Hale often found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. The war had tested them in ways they could never have imagined, but it had also revealed their strengths. It had shown them that even in the face of overwhelming odds, unity and determination could prevail. As he looked out at the stars, he felt a renewed sense of hope. The galaxy was vast, yes, but it was also filled with potential. There were worlds to explore, civilizations to meet, and stories yet to be written. The journey ahead would not be easy, but it was one they would face together. The crew of the flagship, now a symbol of resilience and unity, began preparations for their next mission. Scouting parties were dispatched to chart new regions of space, while diplomats worked tirelessly to strengthen the bonds between worlds. Hale knew that the challenges ahead would require more than just strength and strategy. They would require courage, adaptability, and an unshakable belief in the power of unity. As the engines of the flagship hummed to life, carrying them toward the next chapter of their story, Hale allowed himself a moment of quiet optimism. The unknown still loomed, but for the first time in a long while, it felt less like a threat and more like an invitation. The galaxy awaited, and humanity, alongside its allies, was ready to meet it. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a vast and unbroken expanse of darkness punctuated by the faint glimmers of distant suns. Humanity, once confined to the cradle of Earth, now stood on the precipice of a new era. The wars against the unknown had forged an unlikely alliance, humans and their alien counterparts, bound by a shared determination to survive and thrive. As the fleet of ships powered up, their engines humming with a quiet resolve, Admiral Reyes stepped onto the command deck, his voice cutting through the silence like a beacon of hope. "The unknown is no longer our enemy," he declared, his words carrying the weight of centuries of struggle and triumph. "It's our frontier." This moment marked more than just the launch of another mission. It was the culmination of generations of sacrifice, innovation, and unity. The ships that now pierced the void were no ordinary vessels. They were marvels of engineering, blending human ingenuity with alien technologies that had once seemed beyond comprehension. Each ship carried a diverse crew: scientists, explorers, soldiers, and diplomats, representing the best of what humanity and their allies had to offer. Together, they were not just a fleet, they were a symbol of what could be achieved when differences were set aside in pursuit of a common goal. The first target of their exploration was a region of space known as the Veil of Solace, a mysterious sector that had long been shrouded in speculation. Ancient star charts hinted at its existence, but no probe or scout had ever returned with concrete data. Some believed it held the remnants of a long-lost civilization, while others theorized it was a gateway to entirely new dimensions. Whatever the truth, the Veil of Solace was the perfect embodiment of the frontier. Reyes spoke of a place where the known met the unknowable, and where every discovery had the potential to rewrite the history of the cosmos. As the fleet approached the edge of the veil, the crews prepared for the unknown with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Dr. Ilara Voss, a renowned xenobiologist, found herself staring out a viewport at the swirling nebulae that marked the boundary of the sector. "This is what we've been waiting for," she murmured to herself, her voice barely audible over the hum of the ship's systems. "Every answer we've ever sought could be waiting out there." Her words echoed the sentiment of every soul aboard. This was not just a journey through space, it was a journey into the very essence of discovery. The first scans of the veil revealed anomalies that defied all known laws of physics. Strange energy signatures flickered like distant campfires, and gravitational distortions bent light in ways that made the stars appear to dance. The crew of the lead ship, the Elysium, worked tirelessly to interpret the data, their screens filled with readings that challenged even the most advanced algorithms. Reyes watched over the operation with a quiet intensity, his mind racing with possibilities. "This is it," he said to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Kale. "This is where we find out what we're truly capable of." But the Veil of Solace was not without its dangers. As the fleet ventured deeper, they encountered phenomena that tested both their technology and their resolve. A massive gravitational vortex threatened to pull one of the ships into its crushing embrace, requiring a daring rescue operation that showcased the fleet's cohesion and skill. Later, an uncharted asteroid field forced the crews to navigate with precision and patience, their trust in one another proving as vital as their equipment. Each challenge was a reminder that the unknown, while no longer an enemy, was still a force to be respected. Through it all, Reyes remained a steady presence, his unwavering belief in their mission serving as a guiding light. "We faced worse," he reminded his crew during a particularly tense moment, "and we've always come out stronger on the other side." His words were more than just encouragement, they were a testament to the resilience that had brought them this far. As the fleet pressed on, the first signs of something extraordinary began to emerge. A distant signal, faint but unmistakable, pulsed through the void. It was unlike anything they had ever encountered, neither natural nor artificial, but something in between. The discovery sent ripples of excitement through the fleet, reigniting the spark of curiosity that had driven them from the start. What could it be? A message, a warning, or perhaps an invitation? The answers lay ahead, hidden in the depths of the veil, waiting to be uncovered. With each passing moment, the sense of anticipation grew. This was more than a mission, it was the dawn of a new chapter in the story of the cosmos. And as the fleet ventured deeper into the unknown, one thing became clear: the frontier was not just a place. It was a promise of discovery, of growth, and of the endless possibilities that lay beyond the stars. As the final chapter of humanity's struggle against the unknown draws to a close, the narrative shifts its gaze beyond the confines of Earth, beyond the stars we've fought so desperately to protect, and into the vast expanse of a distant galaxy. Here in the cold, uncharted depths of space, a faint ripple stirs, a shadowy force awakening from the void. It's not an immediate threat, not yet, but its presence is undeniable, a quiet hum of danger that resonates across the cosmos. This is not the end of the story, but the beginning of something far greater, something we cannot yet fully comprehend. The camera lingers on this distant galaxy, its swirling nebulae and glittering stars painting a picture of both beauty and foreboding. The scene is hauntingly serene, yet beneath that tranquility lies an undercurrent of tension. Something is out there, something ancient and powerful, and it's watching. The faint glow of its presence hints at challenges yet to come, battles yet to be fought, and sacrifices yet to be made. It's a reminder that the universe is vast, and our understanding of it is but a flicker in the darkness. As the screen begins to fade, the final line echoes, a declaration that lingers in the air like a promise. The unknown is endless, and so is our resolve. These words are not just a conclusion, but a call to arms, a testament to humanity's unyielding spirit. No matter how vast the darkness, no matter how insurmountable the odds, we will face it. Together, this isn't the end of our journey, it's the next chapter in a saga that stretches across time and space, a story of resilience, courage, and the unbreakable will to survive. The screen fades to black, but the story doesn't truly end. Instead, it leaves us with a sense of anticipation, a quiet excitement for what lies ahead. The unknown is vast, and it's filled with both danger and possibility. It's a reminder that the universe is not just a place of conflict, but also of discovery, of opportunities to grow, to learn, and to become something more than we are. The challenges we face may be great, but so too is our potential to overcome them. This final glimpse into the cosmos serves as a powerful metaphor for the human condition. We are explorers, pioneers, and warriors, driven by an insatiable curiosity and an unshakable determination to push beyond the boundaries of what we know. The distant galaxy is not just a setting but a symbol of the endless possibilities that await us, both as individuals and as a species. It's a reminder that the journey is never truly over, that there is always more to discover, more to fight for, and more to achieve. As the credits roll, the sense of closure is tempered by the promise of what's to come. The story may have reached its conclusion, but the adventure continues. The unknown is endless, and so is our resolve. And in that endlessness, we find not just fear but hope, not just uncertainty but the promise of a brighter future. The screen may fade to black, but the light of our determination burns ever brighter, a beacon in the darkness, guiding us forward into the unknown. As the audiobook draws to its poignant conclusion, it brings us face to face with the raw essence of what it means to be human, our resilience, our capacity to endure, and the unyielding spirit that binds us together in the face of overwhelming odds. The story, which began as a desperate struggle against the unknown, transforms into a profound meditation on survival, sacrifice, and the strength found in unity. It's a reminder that even when the universe seems indifferent, humanity's collective will to persist can light the darkest corners of existence. The final moments of the narrative linger on the immense cost of survival, the lives lost, the world shattered, and the scars etched into the survivors' souls. Yet amidst this heavy toll, there's an undeniable thread of hope. The story doesn't shy away from the pain, but it also refuses to let despair have the last word. Instead, it celebrates the courage of those who stood together, who fought not just for themselves, but for the future of their species. This duality, acknowledging the price of survival while honoring the indomitable human spirit, creates a deeply moving and thought-provoking conclusion. At the heart of this reflection is the theme of unity. Throughout the audiobook, we've seen how division and fear nearly tore humanity apart, but in the end, it was their ability to come together that made the difference. The story underscores the idea that no matter how vast the unknown, no matter how insurmountable the challenges, we are stronger when we stand as one. This isn't just a message for the characters within the narrative, it's a call to all of us, a timeless reminder of what we can achieve when we set aside our differences and work toward a common goal. Perseverance, too, shines as a central theme. The characters face unimaginable trials, from alien threats to the collapse of their societies, yet they never surrender to despair. Their journey is a testament to the power of grit and determination, qualities that resonate deeply with anyone who has ever faced adversity. The audiobook doesn't sugarcoat the struggle, It acknowledges the exhaustion, the doubt, the moments when giving up feels like the only option. But it also shows us that even in those darkest moments, there's a spark of resilience that can reignite the will to fight on. The final words of the audiobook: "The unknown may be vast, but so is our courage. We will endure," serve as both a rallying cry and a quiet affirmation. They leave the listener with a sense of hope, not a naive, unearned optimism, but a hard-won belief in humanity's ability to overcome. These words linger long after the story ends, echoing in the mind like a promise. They remind us that while the challenges we face may be daunting, they are not insurmountable, and that our courage, though tested, is boundless. This conclusion is more than just the end of a story. It's an invitation to reflect on our own lives and the challenges we encounter. It asks us to consider how we respond to adversity, how we come together in times of crisis, and what we're willing to fight for. The audiobook doesn't provide easy answers, but it offers something far more valuable: a sense of connection, a reminder that we are not alone in our struggles, and a belief in our shared capacity to endure. In the end, the audiobook leaves us with a profound sense of hope, not just for the characters, but for ourselves. It's a reminder that even in the face of the unknown, even when the odds seem impossible, we have the strength to persevere. And perhaps, just perhaps, that's the greatest victory of all.